Chapter 121, Breaking Through Chaos and Seeking Opportunity, Endless Chaos. Here there was no time, no space. Everything was a muddled blur. In the void, a rift was torn open from the inside by a hand. Long Chen stepped out. The instant he appeared, the deathly silent chaos seemed to come alive. There was no sound, yet it was more terrifying than any roar. A malice born from existence itself pressed in from all directions. Chaos chi currents, neither wind nor water, but pure nothingness. The law that erased all things flowed like corrosive mist. A wisp of gray chi, like a curious tentacle, brushed Long Chen's protective immortal light. The light did not shatter, nor dim. It simply vanished, as if it had never existed. Long Chen couldn't even recall what that immortal light had looked like. Behind him, the outlines of the 24 Heavens worlds forcibly expanded, isolating an independent space-time. More chaos chi rolled over it like invisible aqua regia, silently corroding his world. The world barrier turned transparent and ethereal. The laws that composed the world were being assimilated and erased by the nothingness outside. At the same time, a repulsive force from Honghuang world's origin pushed against him, trying to squeeze him back into the rift. Hongjun's territory did not welcome outsiders. Long Chen felt it. This chaos had long been regarded by Hongjun as his backyard for assimilating Dao. Any variable that didn't belong to his system was to be eliminated first. Trying to drive me away? Long Chen bared his teeth. In the chaotic light and shadow, his stark white fangs looked like a vicious beast about to devour a god. He didn't retreat. He charged deeper into the violent chaos, meeting that immense, repulsive force head-on. Perhaps others might be scared off by you. Unfortunately, this thing of yours is a tonic for me, he said. He spread his arms, deliberately withdrawing every defense, opening the world barrier of the 24 heavens behind him. Devour for me! Destructive chaos energy crashed into Long Chen's minor thousand worlds like a floodgate thrown wide. In his world, the sky collapsed, shattered like glass. The ground split open into bottomless chasms that led straight to the world's origin. Mountains and rivers disintegrated under the chaos chi, reverting to primitive earth, fire, water, and wind. The entire world underwent apocalyptic dissolution. At the center, the origin core, suppressed by the five-element spiritual root, roared greedily at the influx of chaos energy like a prisoner starved for eons. It tore, ground, and devoured the chaos, extracting the subtlest traces of creation power within it. The collapsing sky was propped up again by that power and rose higher and farther. Even sporadic starlight above the firmament tried to condense. The cracked earth mended, thickened, and solidified. Deep within, the law of metal ore veins slowly formed. This was a Dao completely opposite to Hongjun's three-corpse slaying. Slaying the three corpses was subtraction, cutting to fit the rules forced by the heavenly Dao. Long Chen's Dao was addition and aggression, devouring and refining everything beyond the rules, turning it into nourishment for his own growth. After an unknown span, his inner world expanded to a critical point. The generation of laws could not keep up with the territory's growth, and the whole world trembled like a giant with a fragile skeleton, ready to collapse. Long Chen stopped and sat cross-legged, his mind sinking into his body. His minor thousand worlds territory was now no smaller than a continent in Honghuang. But the world wailed and shook. The flesh is sufficient. It's time to establish the dragon bones and forge the divine soul. The five-element spiritual root is the foundation for establishing a world. What's missing are the four symbol souls to suppress the four directions and stabilize earth, fire, water, and wind. Long Chen's divine thought pierced the endless chaos and locked onto the four seas of Honghuang. East, Jiayi Wood, the position of the Azure Dragon. West, Gengjin Metal, the position of the White Tiger. South, Bingding Fire, the Vermilion Bird. North, Renguai Water, the Black Tortoise. I am of the Dragon Clan. I naturally wield the origin of the Azure Dragon. The Black Tortoise of the North Sea long since submitted. Its origin may be used. The Phoenix Clan is tied to my luck. The Vermilion Bird's origin can be borrowed. His divine thought swept across the western continent of Honghuang, where killing intent soared, but was mixed with endless karma and malevolence left by Luo Hao's death. Impure and chaotic, using it would defile my world. If I can't find a clean one, a chill of madness flashed in Long Chen's eyes. Then I'll create one myself. He sprang up. The seal of the Four Seas orthodoxy, entwined with Xuanhuang karma light, flared with myriad radiances in his palm. A dragon's roar reverberated through the chaos. Four Seas, take your positions. At the same moment, the four seas of Honghuang were overturned. In the east, south, west, and north seas, colossal waves tens of thousands of feet high rolled back into the sky, like four massive blue carpets being peeled off the earth by an unseen colossal hand. At the East Sea Dragon Palace's coiling dragon hall, Ao Shi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea, spat a mouthful of golden blood. He stared at his hand in horror. His bloodline connection to the West Sea was being forcibly drawn from its roots by an irresistible force. What's happening? Seawater lost its spirituality, palaces cast from divine metal faded, and spiderweb cracks appeared on the light curtain of the 10,000 Dragons World Purification Formation. Not just the West Sea, it's the Four Seas. The origin of the Four Seas is being drawn away. Zulong leaned on his dragon head staff, voice hoarse. It felt as if someone was digging a pit beneath them, trying to uproot the entire Dragon Clan's foundation. It's your highness. Ao Dong was the first to react, dread in his voice. Under heaven, only Long Chen, wielder of the seal of the Four Seas orthodoxy, could directly mobilize the origins of the Four Seas without their consent. What is your highness doing? Ao Nan, South Sea Dragon Lord, bloodshot-eyed, hissed. He's destroying his own foundation. Without the origins of the Four Seas, this 10,000 Dragons formation won't last a day. Zhurong and Dijun will devour us, bones and all. Shut up! Zulong wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. A desperate resolve, a stake-it-all determination, ignited in his cloudy old eyes. Your Highness said he was going to overturn the chessboard. He is now gambling with the lives and fate of our Dragon Clan for a future we dare not imagine. He looked over the panicked Dragon Clan elders in the hall and let out the loudest roar of his life. We are your Highness's gamble. Pass on my command. All Dragon Clan members, from elders to newly hatched younglings, enter the formation's core. Burn your dragon blood, sacrifice your dragon souls, stabilize this formation for me. Today, either our Dragon Clan and the Four Seas wither and turn to dust in this East Sea, or we follow your Highness and pierce the heavens. Deep in chaos, four streams of ocean origin, azure, crimson, white, and black, rushed across space-time, ignoring distance, and poured into Long Chen's inner world. Four colossal divine beast phantoms began to condense, propping up heaven and earth. In the east, an azure dragon coiled. In the south, a vermilion bird spread its wings. In the north, a black tortoise suppressed the world. In the west, the outline of a Zheng metal fierce tiger took shape. Its killing intent soaring, but its eyes were hollow, a form without spirit. Not enough. Long Chen drew from the deepest parts of his divine soul, every ounce of killing and strife from his 2 lifetimes, his immense hatred for the witch and demon clans, his boundless fury at Hongjun's chessboard. He branded that solidified will into the phantom of the Zheng metal tiger, using his own hatred and killing intent to dot the beast's eyes. I am the lord of this world. I decree you the western white tiger to wield the killing power of heaven and earth and fight for me. The Zheng metal tiger opened its eyes with a roar. Those eyes held no trace of life, only the pure, cold law of killing. A killing will that could rend heaven and earth was born. The 4 symbols' divine beasts were gathered. The azure dragon guarded the east, the vermilion bird the south, the white tiger the west, and the black tortoise the north. Boom! Long Chen's inner world ceased trembling. The 4 directions stabilized, earth, fire, water, and wind calmed, yin and yang circulated, and the 5 elements generated themselves. A perfect, independent, self-contained world cycle had formed. Long Chen stood at the center of a world of his own making. A purple-gold light barrier separated the inside from the chaos outside. Beyond that barrier raged earth, fire, water, and wind that could shred existence. Inside, however, was the nascent world he had personally formed. His will was law here. The Jianmu root propped up the firmament, and the fire spiritual root had become a rising sun, its light faint but unmistakably real. The 5-element spiritual roots were the backbone of this heaven and earth. With each breath they took, the world's laws grew a little firmer. Here, he was the god of creation. I wager the lives of my entire clan to achieve the Tao, he declared. I bear this karma. Now it is time to repay that debt. He waved his hand. 4 precious flags floated before him, each carrying a distinct aura. The banner of Scorching Earth Flame, the Qinglian Bao Se flag, the Wuji Xinhuang flag, and the Suse Yunjie flag. Each was a top-grade innate spirit treasure, objects even the primordial era's Grand Unity Golden Immortals had coveted but could not obtain. In that age, a quasi-saint would require tens of thousands of years to refine one. To refine one for another was practically suicide, like cleaving open your primordial spirit and letting others come and go. One slip and your Tao would be gone. Risk? Longchen smiled. In my world, those 2 words don't exist. He first looked at the emerald banner of Scorching Earth Flame, its surface wreathed with a phantom Jianmu. Ao Dong. His will pierced chaos, ignoring spatial temporal barriers, and thundered into the East Sea Dragon Palace, into the divine soul of Ao Dong, the East Sea Dragon Lord. Your Highness, your servant is here. Ao Dong, who was burning his dragon blood along with the other dragon kings to sustain a vast formation, felt his divine soul quake. It was His Highness's voice. It had worked. Focus your mind and calm your qi, Longchen commanded, his tone carrying an irresistible majesty. This dominator will retrieve a Tao-proving treasure for you. Before the words were finished, Longchen extended a finger inside his nascent world. A drop of purple-gold dragon blood seeped from his fingertip. Within it lay no life, only the will to reshape rule. He was not refining the banner, he was appointing its dominator. With my blood as a bridge and my world as a furnace. His fingertip touched the banner. It erupted with towering resistance. The Jianmu Phantom sprang to life, becoming a boundless primeval forest. Billions of sharp tree spears tore through space, piercing toward Long Chen's will. The innate spirit treasure roared in contempt. Did a mere Dragon Clan member dare defile it? Presumptuous. Long Chen spoke only 2 words. The nascent world, this purple-gold domain spanning billions of miles, brought down its entire world will like an invisible continent, smashing into the resisting spirit. This was not power or law. It was the Creator God's absolute dominion over his creation. Crack! The sky-filling tree spears froze, then disintegrated into dust. The Jianmu image on the banner groaned and crumbled inch by inch as all resisting will was crushed into the most primordial energy particles. Only fear remained, the instinctive terror at the brink of erasure. Remember, Long Chen's will became an iron law, branded deep into the banner's origin. From this moment on, your dominator is Ao Dong. His will is your will. If he dies, you shall be buried with him. Using the bloodline bridge he had long anchored in the Void Realm, he seized the trace of Ao Dong's origin dragon soul and embedded it directly into the banner's core. Refine! Long Chen's will became a furnace. The world's power became a hammer, forcing Ao Dong's fragile dragon soul and the banner's proud innate great Tao together. Ao Dong in the East Sea roared in pain as his soul felt torn in 2, one half cast into burning true solar flames, the other into 9 nether profound ice. It was the treasure's instinctive backlash. Fuse. Long Chen commanded coldly. The Jianmu spiritual root at his world's center trembled. A more ancient wood origin power, like a divine beast descending, poured into the banner. The banner's struggle ceased. It yielded, opening its core to accept and nurture Ao Dong's nearly shattered dragon soul. After a time, the emerald banner hummed with joy. Beside the Jianmu Phantom, an ancient azure dragon coiled around a trunk, lifelike. In the East Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Dong's screams stopped. He spread his hand, and a small emerald flag appeared in his palm, bound to his bloodline. With a single thought, the innate wood element power within the flag surged through his body. Tears came to this old dragon king's eyes. Your Highness, he bowed low toward the Void Realm. Next, Ao Nan. Long Chen's will turned toward the South Sea Dragon Lord and the Qinglian Bao Se flag, which burned like living fire. This time, Long Chen was even more overbearing. He didn't even bother with communication. Your temper suits this flag, he said. Both are like stones in a latrine. Then we shall let you clash head-on. He crushed half of the flag's spirituality with his world will and shoved Ao Nan's dragon soul into it. The banner flared with innate scorching earth flame, a blaze that could boil seas and burn heavens. Long Chen's thought rippled through the realm. I declare in this realm that fire is cold. At his word, that sea of fire, powerful enough to incinerate a Grand Unity Golden Immortal, lost all heat and became a cold illusion that quietly extinguished. Defiant? Then he would break it apart. Brutal, simple, effective. When all 4 precious flags had been refined and floated quietly before him, each carried a desolate dragon might belonging to one of the 4 sea dragon lords. They were no longer mere objects, but extensions of the bodies and souls of those dragon lords. This, at last, is a proper account. He was about to send the flags back to the 4 seas when a faint touch brushed the purple-gold barrier of his world. It was light, but it could not escape him, the dominator of this realm. A beam of gaze spanning endless chaos landed on him. It was prying and fleeting. Had he not been the heavenly Tao here, he might not have noticed. Hongjun. Long Chen's face grew cold. The commotion had alarmed the player who now integrated with the Tao. Whatever stood on the other side could only sense vaguely, as if peering through frosted glass. "Old man, your hand truly reaches far," Long Chen murmured, a hint of savagery flashing in his eyes. He made a deliberate decision, and with a thought, he made a corner of his world's barrier transparent, letting that gaze catch a glimpse of reality. The watcher did not see a nascent world. It saw a purple-gold giant dragon, looming between heaven and earth, opening its maw and swallowing a star burning with true solar flames in a single gulp, chewing sounds rumbling from its throat. The fabricated scene was an insult to the Yao race of the heavenly court and an arrogant provocation to the heavenly Tao. Long Chen felt the gaze change. After seeing that scene, the probe stopped being vague and took on a lofty coldness, as if looking at an irritating insect. It was about to withdraw, but paused. "Then I shall give you a grand show," he thought. He put the 4 refined flags away and sat cross-legged. Under Hongjun's nose, he prepared to do something that would shake the entire primordial era. The aura around him surged wildly, hundreds of times more ferocious than when he had devoured the origins of the 4 seas. He was sacrificing his own world. The earth, sky, and oceans, all the origin power, and the newly born phantom divine beasts of azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise, all of it poured back into his body. He used the entire world's foundation to assault the supreme threshold. "Hongjun!" His shout made chaos itself royal. "Watch closely." He rose to his feet, staring straight at the gaze from Xianxia Palace with madness and battle intent blazing in his face. "This dominator today, right under your nose," Long Chen's voice trembled with resolve, "shall break through." Chapter 123, the 4 symbols return to their positions and the 5 elements are complete. Long Chen sat cross-legged in the center of the violet gold world he had forged. He ignored the probing gazes from beyond the 33 heavens. Hongjun could wait. He was merely a prisoner about to fuse with his cage. Long Chen's priority was to smash that cage. He examined himself inwardly. In this world, the 5 elements law flowed and flesh and blood took form, but that alone was not enough. A body with only flesh and blood was nothing but a lump of mud. A world needed a skeleton. The 5 elements govern earth. Only the 4 sacred beasts can support heaven. His will swept through the 4 turbulent sea origins contained within the Jianmu spiritual root, the vitality of the East Sea, the blazing heat of the South Sea, the killing intent of the West Sea, and the stillness of the North Sea. They could not remain mere nutrients. East, south, west, north, azure dragon, vermilion bird, white tiger, black tortoise. Using the origins of the 4 seas as material, I will sculpt the 4 sacred beasts to hold up the 4 poles of my world and stabilize earth, fire, water, and wind. That decree was the first heavenly constitution of this world. No destruction, no random creation, only order. With a thought, Long Chen's will became a giant, violet gold hand. Without hesitation, it plunged into the Jianmu spiritual root that supported heaven and earth. "First, Azure Dragon! Get out! For this sovereign!" The Jade Roar answered. His hand gripped the vast East Sea origin buried deep in the Jianmu and tore it out. A rift opened in the root. Pain lanced through Long Chen's divine soul as if his spine were being ripped apart, and his dragon body trembled, but his grip did not loosen. A high-pitched dragon roar, full of the rapture of breaking free, shot from the rift in the Jianmu. A divine dragon, all emerald scales and wrapped in endless vitality law, was wrenched out from the 5 elements cycle. Under Long Chen's will, it condensed into the form of the Azure Dragon. "You were the East Sea and an extension of my Dragon Clan bloodline," Long Chen declared. Today, I enthrone you as the Eastern Jia Wood sacred beast, charged with the flourishing of all things in this world. Take your place. The azure dragon cried, its massive body compressing into a pillar of green light that pierced heaven and earth and planted itself in the east. The eastern sky stabilized at once. Next, Vermilion Bird. His violet-gold hand plunged toward the nascent sun formed by the Leafire's spiritual root. A sharp phoenix cry erupted. The Vermilion Bird's spirit, born from the South Sea origin, unleashed innate Lee fire that could boil seas and melt a grand unity golden immortal, intending to incinerate Long Chen's will. Fiery temperament. Long Chen did not retreat. He reached out and seized the fiery bird by the throat. In this sovereign's world, you have no right to decide the temperature of fire. His cold voice became law. In this world, I decree, fire be ice. All the heat of the innate Lee fire vanished. The flames remained, but they no longer burned with heat. They radiated a bone-chilling cold, frost condensing at their edges. The Vermilion Bird's spirit crystallized. This was a rule it could neither understand nor resist, the Creator God's absolute dominion. Your master is me, not the flame. Long Chen's will formed a Tao seal and branded itself into the Vermilion Bird's origin, ripping it from the core of the great sun. A crimson pillar of light shot up and took position in the south. The southern sky steadied. He did not pause. His will reached into the gang metal spiritual root in the west. Aang! No words, no begging, only raw killing intent. An extremely pure, snow-white tiger of slaughter burst forth, bearing bloody fangs as it lunged straight for Long Chen's will, intent on killing the one it perceived as its master. Very good. Long Chen welcomed it, not with suppression, but with response. He drew forth all his killing intent accumulated over 2 lifetimes, his ancient hatred for the witch and demon clans, his boundless fury at Hongjun's machinations, and condensed it into a ferocious, unreasonable, vicious beast of his own. It met the white tiger in full force. This was not a contest of law, but a clash of pure will, killing intent against killing intent. The white tiger roared in pain as its pure West Sea origin melted like snow under Long Chen's overbearing intent that defied everything. The phantom of the innate slayer collapsed, then reformed under Long Chen's command, bowing not from submission, but in recognition that Long Chen embodied the higher killing intent itself. Take your place. The white tiger became a gang metal pillar of light, its killing intent climbing into the heavens and suppressing the west. Finally, the black tortoise of the north, representing stillness and return, was taken from the cycle of Shirang and Ren Water Peach. This process met no resistance. The black tortoise glanced at Long Chen with composed indifference and willingly became a dark black pillar of light, anchoring the north. It represented the end, and it understood who, ultimately, would be the end of all things in this world. With that, the 4 sacred beasts were in position. Azure Dragon, Vermilion Bird, White Tiger, Black Tortoise. 4 pillars of law stretched through heaven and earth, planted at the 4 poles, east, south, west, and north, their auras linking to form an invisible dome that wrapped the entire world. Heaven now had a skeleton, earth had flesh and blood. Rumble. Long Chen's violet gold world began its true evolution. The barriers of the minor thousand worlds shattered inch by inch as the world leapt toward the level of a middle thousand world. The sky no longer lay flat. A great sun rose, a silver moon hung, and stars were born in the void realm. The ground was no longer level. 10,000 Zhang mountain ranges thrust skyward and thousandly rivers surged. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter began to cycle. Direction and space were fixed. A living world, complete with time and space laws, had been born. At the exact moment the world took shape, Long Chen's violet gold Tao fruit, hanging Ji in the center as the mark of his quasi-saint Tao cultivation, shattered with a crack. It did not dissipate. Instead, it split into billions of fundamental great Tao runes that poured into the newborn middle thousand world, merging into every inch of space, every mote of dust, every law. From then on, the world was Long Chen, and Long Chen was the world. He no longer needed an external talisman to hold his Tao. His very existence had become the Tao. An aura far exceeding a quasi-saint, comparable to a heavenly Tao saint, yet of a different nature, radiated from him. Saints placed their faith in the heavenly Tao. He had become the heavenly Tao. Grand unity, golden immortal, complete. Long Chen opened his eyes slowly. There was no divine radiance in them, only a calm, empty embrace of all things. He raised his hand and opened his palm. A single thought and a speck of dust appeared above it. Nebulae swirled inside, mountains and rivers took form, and a miniature violet-gold divine dragon was born. Another thought, and the universe within that speck rushed toward heat death, collapsing back into the void realm. Thought could create a world, thought could unmake a universe. This, he realized, was his Tao. Just as he murmured the words, an unprecedented alarm rippled beyond the 33 heavens at Xianxia Palace. The palace, eternal and coeval with chaos, shuddered. Hongjun, who had been closing his eyes to fuse with the heavenly Tao and bask in endless Tao resonance, snapped them open. His gaze was usually void of living emotion, holding only the indifference of the heavenly Tao, but now surprise flickered across it for the first time. Not because he felt anything directly, rather the primordial heavenly Tao he sought to merge with issued an alarm. A malignant anomaly had appeared in its backyard, an independent, entirely new heavenly Tao that did not conform to the rules it had set. Variable. Hongjun spat the two cold words, each laced with boundless killing intent. His gaze pierced the 33rd heaven, cut through endless chaos, and locked onto the world bathed in new violet gold light. Chapter 124. The prince sought divine bronze, and the Taoist ancestor granted him an opportunity. Hongjun's gaze pierced through time and karma. The moment his will touched that layer of purple gold light, he was violently repelled. The barrier did not budge. Inside Xianxia Palace, an ancient hall that stood through chaos, the structure shuddered without warning. Hongjun's saint body, which should have been as steady and aloof as the heavenly Tao, trembled. The infinite Tao Yun of the Great Desolation, the supreme order that surrounded him, split like a mirror with a sharp kacha. The crack vanished in an instant, but it had been undeniably real. An independent world, not part of the Great Desolation, not subject to the heavenly Tao. Hongjun's expression, normally unchanging, tightened. He didn't need to fully understand. The Great Desolation's heavenly Tao, which was currently fusing with him, was sending an alarm unlike any before, an inkling of fear. It was like finding a malignant tumor in a healthy body that ravenously consumed nutrients. Outside the chessboard, he was about to bring completely under his control, someone had set down another chessboard. Within that purple gold world, Longchen alone set the rules. Grand, unity, golden immortal. Hongjun spat the title through clenched teeth, a name the heavenly Tao itself had tried to erase. His killing intent no longer hid. He had attained the Tao by severing his 3 corpses, becoming a heavenly Tao saint, a maintainer of order. His power came from the heavenly Tao and was therefore constrained by it. But a grand unity golden immortal was a great Tao saint whose power arose from within, self-originating, forming a closed cycle beyond ordinary laws. Pangu had once walked that path. The 3,000 chaos demon gods had too. After Pangu split the heavens and the heavenly Tao rose supreme, that path was severed. Now, under his nose, Longchen had reconnected it. This child must not be allowed to live. Hongjun's killing intent nearly tore Xianxia Palace apart. He wanted to interrupt his Tao fusion and personally erase that nascent world. But he stopped himself. The Tao fusion was at its critical final stage. To interrupt it now would ruin all he had built and risk his sainthood. The cost was unbearable. He forced his attention back to the purple gold world with an unease he would not admit even to himself. The opponent's world laws formed a perfect closed loop, like a solid chaos boulder, impregnable. Even if he struck, once the dragon retreated into its shell, he could do nothing for a long time. A chess piece is still a chess piece. Hongjun closed his eyes, his emotions calmed to dead stillness. How could the Great Desolation's grand trend be overturned by a mere variable? His will merged fully with the heavenly Tao. Acting personally carried too great a price. But there were many knives. He would use the great chessboard of heaven and earth to crush Longchen, the chess piece that had jumped off the board, into oblivion. Yao race. His voice chilled. It's time you play your true role. In chaos, inside that purple gold world, Longchen felt the killing intent, and then the other side's withdrawal. He laughed inside his private realm. Old geezer, getting nervous? He spoke aloud, his voice ringing through his world. Too bad, you can't move. He had calculated Hongjun was in a delicate period of Dao fusion and would neither dare nor be able to act in person. By the time Hongjun completed his fusion, Long Chen would have long since consolidated his grand unity realm. Who would crush whom remained uncertain. Long Chen rose, stepped over, and stood before the four suspended banners. Before, with only quasi-saint cultivation, he had to be cautious modifying them. Now he reached out and gripped the banner of scorching earth flame, the banner representing wood. The banner trembled violently in his hand, crying out. Before a grand unity golden immortal, the pride of a top-grade innate spirit treasure was meaningless. Too weak, Long Chen muttered. The forcibly fused dragon soul and the banner's origin clung together like something glued. They ripped apart at the slightest touch. A forced melon isn't sweet. I need to add some seasoning. His mind shifted. The azure dragon light pillar in the east of his world trembled. Long Chen pulled out a wisp of extremely pure azure dragon origin, containing the power of creation, and pressed it into the banner he held. The emerald banner erupted with a dragon's roar that shook heaven and earth. On its surface, the azure dragon, once only a phantom, opened its eyes and truly came alive. An aura far exceeding a top-grade innate spirit treasure burst forth. It had gained the foundation of a supreme treasure. This is more like it. Long Chen nodded and repeated the process. He drew wisps of the four symbols' origin from the vermilion bird, white tiger, and black tortoise light pillars and infused them into the other three banners. Moments later, four newly awakened treasured banners floated before him. Each now carried potential that could challenge the innate supreme treasure realm. Go, Long Chen waved. Four streams of light pierced the purple-gold barrier of chaos and, following bloodline connections, shot toward the four seas of the Great Desolation, the East Sea's Crystal Palace. Ao Dong, Ao Nan, Ao Shi, and Ao Bei, the four dragon lords, sat upright. His Highness had just sent a message. He had refined their destined treasures and prepared a surprise. No sooner had the message ended than four divine lights pierced Crystal Palace's dome and hovered before them. They were the banners, but their aura had been completely transformed. Ao Dong stared at the emerald banner in shock. Its power was more than 100 times what he had felt before. Trembling, he took hold of the pole. A vast origin of vitality poured into his primordial spirit. He glimpsed a new path toward the grand unity realm. My heavens! Ao Dong, your horns! Ao Nan cried, his voice quivering. Ao Dong touched his horns. What had been withered and rotten now gleamed jade-like, a crystalline new bud flowering at the tip, a sign of revived vitality. Mine too! Ao Nan, Dragon Lord of the South Sea, gripped the Qinglian Baose banner, and the dim dragon scales on his body flared with a trace of true solar fire. What intense killing intent! Ao Shi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea, took the Su Yunjie banner. The moment he did, a surge of gang metal killing intent shot from the banner and gouged a bottomless crack in the indestructible Crystal Palace floor. I only used a sliver of thought. Ao Shi hastily drew his hand back, staring at the chasm in disbelief. Your Highness, what exactly did you do? Ao Bei, North Sea Dragon Lord, clasped the Xuanyuan water control flag and muttered to himself. This wasn't mere treasure refining. This was bestowing a Dao, granting them a brand new path to ascend. The four exchanged glances and moved to kneel in thanks. Yet an invisible, gentle force held them upright, preventing the bow. Gone were their speculations about His Highness's current realm. Only reverence remained. At that same instant, in the 33rd Heaven's Lingxiao Palace, Emperor Taiyi bore the Chaos Bell and wore an irritated expression. Big brother, those old mollusk's shells are too hard. I shook them 3 days and nights with the Chaos Bell. All I managed was to make them spit some blood. I couldn't break the damned formation. Their origin seems inexhaustible, he muttered. Emperor Dijun sat upon his throne, watching the starlight flow across the Heitu and Luoshu before him, yet he could not find a way to break the impasse. No hurry, Dijun said calmly. They are burning the four seas and digging their own graves. Once the seas dry, they'll perish of themselves without our intervention. That will take forever, Emperor Taiyi roared. How can our Yao Heavenly Court be held back here by a bunch of defeated foes? I'll go down and smash their dragon palaces stone by stone. And then let the barbarians of the witch race raid our home? Dijun shot back coldly. As tension pressed down in the hall, a supreme majesty descended without warning. All the Yao gods in Lingxiao Palace, including Dijun and Emperor Taiyi, involuntarily stood and bowed toward Xixiao Palace. Hongjun Dao Ancestors' decree erupted into the sky as golden divine script, embedding itself deep within the soul of every Yao. The Yao race is destined to rule heaven and earth. The Dragon Clan acts heaven-defying, a tumor of the Great Desolation. They shall be exterminated. Now I bestow upon you the power of the Zhoutian stars to aid you in slaying demons and upholding the heavenly Tao. Rumble, the heavenly court shook. Outside the 33 heavens, 365 principal stars appeared in broad daylight. Brilliant starlight pillars descended like a falling river of light, each striking precisely into Dijun, Emperor Taiyi, and the 365 Zhou Tianyao gods. Dijun and Emperor Taiyi felt their auras surge wildly. Ha! Emperor Taiyi laughed madly, the chaos bell in his hands roaring in sympathy as a destructive power boiled within him. Dao Ancestor has decreed it. Destiny favors us. Dijun rose and spread his hands. The star track trajectories etched on the Hedu and Luoshu clarified as never before. What he felt was not just power but authority, the heavenly Tao granting him the right to invoke the laws of the Great Desolation itself. He and Emperor Taiyi exchanged a glance. Dao Ancestor. Dijun's eyes burned with newfound ecstasy and killing intent. This is his approval of us. Chapter 125. The Emperor of Heaven breaks through again, and the fortune of the demon race rises. In the 33rd heaven, at Lingxiao Palace, star power spilled like a river breaking its banks. 365 brilliant divine pillars pierced the heavenly court, each pillar marking the birth of a quasi-saint. Emperor Taiyi stood in the flood of golden light. Deep within his primordial spirit, an invisible shackle that had bound him for countless strength. Yuanhui cracked with a sharp caw. He had broken through to peak late-stage quasi-saint. Raw, terrifying power pushed him to a wholly new height. Big brother! Taiyi snapped his eyes open. Two clusters of solar true fire burst from his pupils, scorching the void into twisted ruin. He gripped the chaos bell. The bell's metal hummed, not ringing, but roaring with anticipation. This power, I feel like I could punch through Mount Buzhou right now. Dijun said nothing. He stood before the imperial throne and let the most majestic lunar star power wash over him. Above the Hetu Luoshu before him, the star trajectories glowed so clearly they seemed tangible. Each shift, each line, represented aspects of heaven and earth he had never encountered. This was not merely more strength, but the authority to invoke certain laws of the Great Desolation, temporarily ceded to him by Dao Ancestor Hongjun through the heavenly Tao, a gift and a leash. Dijun raised his hand and watched the starlight pool in his palm. His voice was flat but authoritative. What a grand gesture. Big brother, what are we waiting for? Taiyi hoisted the chaos bell. Battle intent flamed so fiercely it shook Lingxiao Palace. By Dao Ancestor's decree, destiny favors us. The Dragon Clan defies heaven and must be punished. I'll go now and tear those loaches' bones apart in the four seas. No rush. Dijun raised a hand and checked his impulsive brother. His gaze swept the 365 Yao gods below, Baize, Yingzhao, Jimeng among them. Their cultivations had been forcibly elevated to early-stage quasi-saint. Their auras wavered, and their foundations were still fragile, but there they stood, 365 quasi-saints. I, Your Majesty, bestow upon you the title of Zhou Tianyao God, Dijun intoned. Each of you shall command a main star and patrol on heaven's behalf. His decree fell like thunder. Above each Yao god, the star imprint solidified. A vast formation matrix was branded into their primordial spirits. Zhou Tian Xingdou De Zhen, all heaven star constellation formation. We thank Your Majesty for your heavenly grace. We thank Dao Ancestor for his immense favor. The Yao prostrated, their cheers like mountains colliding with the sea. The luck of the entire heavenly court condensed to a peak. Dijun basked in the reverence, and for the first time that day, allowed a genuine smile. A clear, cool voice cut through the hall's fervor. Imperial Father, Imperial Uncle, your child believes that now is not the best time to attack the four seas. Silence fell. The Yao gods turned toward the voice to see a handsome young man in a golden feathered robe step forward from behind Dijun's throne. It was Dijun's 10th son, Luya. Taiyi's brows tightened, His impatience nearly took solid form. "10th brother, you have no say here. Dao ancestor bestowed this power. This is our best chance to wipe out the Dragon Clan in one stroke. What do you know?" Tai snapped. Luya was undeterred. He bowed first to Tai, then faced Dijun calmly. "Imperial Father, Dao Ancestor's gift of this grand formation is indeed a great opportunity, but one crucial element is still missing." "Oh?" Dijun's interest was clear. "Missing what?" "The formation's core." Luya's voice was quiet but carried throughout the hall. The Zhou Tianxing Dou Zhen draws its power from the Sun Star and the Lunar Star, mobilizing the star power of the whole sky. But to fuse the strength of 365 Yao uncles into an indestructible killing force, the formation needs an object of ultimate rigidity and pure yang as its operational hub. He paused before continuing. "Without such an object, the formation's output will be reduced by at least 30%. If forced to operate in that state, I fear the uncles' divine souls could be damaged by power conflicts, a net loss." Dijun's eyes flickered with approval. "What is your suggestion?" "Mount Buzhou was formed from Pangu's spine and contains the first mountain copper, the world's first gang metal. It is supremely rigid and yang, perfect material for the formation's core." Luya straightened, his voice ringing out. "Your child humbly requests permission to lead a detachment to Mount Buzhou and retrieve the divine copper." He laid out his reasoning with calm clarity. Firstly, it will complete the formation and secure success in a single attempt. Secondly, Mount Buzhou lies within Wu Clan territory. Our expedition will be a declaration that this great desolation belongs under our rule. Thirdly, the Dragon Clan has just acquired a treasure and is drunk on arrogance. They will expect an immediate assault. If we delay and do not give them what they expect, we let them simmer in fear and weaken their resolve. Once we have the divine copper and the formation is perfected, we will strike the four seas like thunder and finish them at a single blow. "Good!" Tai clapped his thigh and laughed. "What a brilliant plan, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Truly the best of my brother's sons." For the first time, Dijun regarded Luya with something more than a father's affection, scrutiny and approval. He waved his sleeve and declared, majestic and decisive, "Granted. Yingzhao, Jimeng, each of you will lead 100,000 Yao soldiers to accompany the 10th prince. You must retrieve the divine copper." "We obey your majesty's decree." Meanwhile, in Kunlun Mountain at Yuxu Palace, Yuanxi Tianzun watched the lux-suffused golden light rise from the heavenly court and clapped, delighted. "Good, good, good. Dao Ancestor is wise. Let those feathered beasts and those wet-born loaches tear each other apart, best if they perish together and restore balance to heaven and earth." Heaven Master Tongqin casually wiped the Qingping sword, pursing his lips. Borrowed power is always a castle built on sand. The 300-plus empty quasi-saints look imposing, but they'll collapse with a shove. He looked east, toward the sea, with interest. That dragon truly has real skill. If Dijun and Tai try to take him down, they may crack all their teeth. "Junior brother, your words are mistaken." Yuanxi Tianzun's voice turned cold. "Before the great tide of the heavenly Tao, individual bravery counts for little. 365 quasi-saints deploying the Zhou Tianxing Dou Zhen, even you and I would have to give its edge a wide berth. That Longchen is doomed." Ta Ching Laozi, who had been silent, opened cloudy eyes and glanced from the heavenly court to Mount Buzhou. "The water is full," he said slowly. "The cup should crack." At Mount Buzhou's Pangu Hall, Zhurong slammed his foot down and shook the floor 3 times. "Too much favoritism," he bellowed. "That old Hongjun is blind with favoritism, giving special treatment to those feathered birds, 365 quasi-saints? Does he think quasi-saints are cabbages?" Gong face was as gloomy as dark water. "Brother, we've been set up. Dao Ancestor wants the Yao race to destroy the Dragon Clan, then let the heavily damaged Yao race fight us to the death so he can reap the benefits." All the clan matriarch's gazes turned to Dijiang at the head. His expression was unreadable. After a long silence, he spoke, his voice low and carrying the weight of command. "Pass my orders. All warriors of the 12 Wu clan tribes, immediately cease all expansion, retract completely, hold your ground, and enter a state of combat readiness." Zhurong flared up. "Big brother, no fighting?" Are we just going to watch those birdmen show off? Fight. But not now. A calculating light passed through Dijiang's eyes. Let those birds who received Dao Ancestor's favor be the first to contend with the Dragon of the East Sea. That Longchen is no easy opponent, he continued. I want to see whether the power bestowed by Dao Ancestor is greater, or whether that young man, whose depths even I cannot plumb, has stronger methods. Dijiang rose, his gaze as if piercing through time and space to the endless curtain of water that shrouded the East Sea. We will watch the show. Chapter 126, 365, The Zhoutian Demon Gods Arise Heavenly Court, Commander-in-Chief Platform. Dijun stood in a golden crow emperor's robe, a heaven-pacifying crown upon his head, and surveyed the vast, dark Yao host below with a sovereign gaze. Behind him, Emperor Taiyi gripped the Chaos Bell, his face cold and arrogant. Flanking them were 365 figures, arrayed like pillars of fate. Each exuded the terrifying pressure of an early-stage quasi-saint and was attuned to one of the 365 principal stars in the sky. The starlight they drew down blazed so brightly it threatened to eclipse the daylight. These were the newly appointed Zhou Tian demon gods: Baize, Yingzhao, Jimeng, Fei Lian, formerly only Grand Unity Golden Immortals, now standing tall with uncontainable zeal and confidence. Under Dao Ancestor Hongjun's enlightenment, they had risen to the quasi-saint realm, a height they had never dared imagine. More importantly, the Zhoutian star formation's complete diagram and its control methods had been branded into them like instinct. They could feel, with absolute clarity, that if the 365 demon gods acted as one, they could awaken the stars, power across the great desolation, and unleash the legendary ultimate killing formation capable of slaying saints. This power filled them with unprecedented arrogance. My brothers. Dijun's voice was not loud, but the authority of the heavenly Tao made it echo into every corner of the 33rd heaven. 10,000 years ago, I defied heaven, founded this court, and stabilized the heavenly realm. For 10,000 years, my Yao race has brought order to the great desolation and enlightened all living things, accruing boundless merit. Yet now there are creatures of the lower realm who, ignorant of heaven's ordinances, dare to steal the origin of the great desolation's water veins and attempt to overturn heaven and earth. This is a transgression against heaven. His tone froze, sharp with killing intent. Today, the Tao Ancestor has issued a decree. My heavenly court shall act for heaven, to punish, to cleanse the cosmos, and to restore light and order to the great desolation. He swept his hand toward the endless sea of clouds. In the name of the heavenly emperor, I enfee off Baize, Yingzhao, Jimeng, and the other 365 Yao marshals as Zhou Tian demon gods. Each shall command a principal star, shall live as long as heaven and earth, and shine as bright as sun and moon. As his command fell, the 365 main stars flared at once. Columns of brilliant, multicolored starlight descended, one for each Zhoutian demon god, enveloping them precisely. In that instant, their auras merged with the stars. No longer separate individuals, they became components of the Zhoutian star formation itself. A roar rolled out like thunder. Hearing the new cosmic power that bound them to heaven and earth, every demon god, every Yao soldier, raised an earth-shattering cry. Long live the heavenly emperor! Long live the Yao race! The sound waves shook the nine heavens sea of clouds into turmoil. Dijun watched with satisfaction. He had accepted Dao Ancestor Hongjun's gift and would repay it with a glorious victory and a declaration to the great desolation of who truly commanded heaven and earth. He turned to Taiyi. Taiyi, your subject is here. You will personally lead the 10 great demon sages, the 365 Zhou Tian demon gods, and 1,000,000 heavenly Yao soldiers to the East Sea. Yes, Taiyi's eyes burned with killing intent as he received the order. Dijun's voice slipped into his primordial spirit. In this battle, do not seek to kill the enemy. Seek only to establish our prestige. The Dragon Clan's formation is rooted in the origin of the four seas and blessed by the legacy of the ancestral dragon. To break it will not be achieved in a single day, and my Yao race will suffer losses if we try recklessly. Your mission is to march to their gate, use the Zhoutian star formation to trap them, and force out that brat Longchen. A calculating light flashed in Dijun's eyes. The Tao Ancestor wants us to be his blade, so be it, but how and when we strike is our choice. This battle must demonstrate to the myriad races of the Great Desolation the majesty of my heavenly court and where the mandate of heaven truly lies. It must show the barbarians on Mount Buzhou the true strength of my Yao race. And most importantly, it must show the Tao Ancestor that I, Dijun, am no mindless executor of orders. Tai instantly grasped his brother's deeper intent. Dijun intended to besiege a point to draw out reinforcements, using the Dragon Clan as a target to flex before the whole Great Desolation, not only to deter the Wu clan, but to display his own worth and cunning before the Tao Ancestor. Elder brother is brilliant, Tai praised sincerely. Go, Dijun commanded. Let the entire Great Desolation tremble beneath my Yao race. As you command. Tai accepted the order, seized the Chaos Bell, and transformed into a streak of golden light, plunging down from the 9 heavens. The 10 great demon sages, the 365 Jotian demon gods, and 1,000,000 Yao soldiers followed like a dark, sun-eclipsing torrent. The Yao court had launched an all-out assault. Their momentum and pressure stunned the Great Desolation. Reclusive masters awoke in their immortal caves and cast divine thoughts toward the advancing host, sensing the inexorable killing intent. Rumors and questions spread in every corner. What is the Yao race doing? That direction, the East Sea. They're attacking the Dragon Clan? Are they mad? The Dragon Clan still holds the 4 seas, has deep foundations, and 3 quasi-saints guarding them. Do the Yao want a suicidal war? Can't you feel it? The Yao race's luck, something's different. Dijun and Tai's auras are far stronger than at the Xixiao Palace lecture. And those 365 quasi-saint auras, heavens, what opportunity have they seized? Shock and confusion spread across the Great Desolation. The East Sea Dragon Palace, however, remained oblivious, still reveling in the Dragon Lord's sudden strengthening and the treasures bestowed by the Crown Prince, until the Black Host arrived at the waterline. Demonic clouds blotted the sky, swallowing the sunlight. The East Sea's placid surface turned blood-tinted under the invading aura. "Enemy attack!" shrieked the alarm. Patrol yakshas and aquatics scattered to the seabed in panic as the vast Yao fleet filled the horizon. Coiling Dragon Hall. The smiles of the 4 sea dragon lords froze mid-celebration. Aodong watched the water mirror and the familiar figure at the front holding the Chaos Bell, his teeth grinding. They actually came. The news that the Yao race army was bearing down like an ice hammer shattered the fleeting joy in the Crystal Palace. The Dragon Lords of the 4 seas, who had only moments before been intoxicated with power, now stood drained of color. 365 quasi-saints? Aoshi, Dragon Lord of the West Sea, stared at the water mirror where 365 pillars of demonic qi stabbed up through heaven and earth. His voice trembled, and he could not keep the Susyunje banner steady in his hand. That number felt like an immovable mountain pressing on the Dragon Clan's hearts. "It's Hongjun." Aonan, Dragon Lord of the South Sea, slammed his fist onto the jade table. The 10,000-year-old warm jade shattered into dust with a crisp crack. "Bloodshot," he roared. "Who else could do this? To create 365 quasi-saints overnight. He doesn't merely want us dead. He wants the Dragon Clan erased from the Great Desolation." Despair spread through the Grand Hall like a plague. The Dragon Clan, who had just glimpsed hope, now seemed plunged back into an abyss. "What are you panicking for?" An old, steady voice, quiet but authoritative, cut through the fear and commotion. Zulong rose from the throne. His single eye swept over every elder in the hall, cold and unreadable. "Have you all forgotten what His Highness instructed before he left? Show weakness. Seal the sea. Do not bargain with them." Zulong repeated Long Chen's orders, enunciating each one. Those phrases landed on the assembled dragons like 3 sea-calming anchors, steadying their crumbling resolve. Old Ancestor. Aobei, North Sea Dragon Lord, spoke with dry lips, struggling, "But they're already at our doorstep. That's Emperor Tai and the Chaos Bell. Can our grand formation hold against them? Even if it can't, it must." Aodong stepped forward, planting the Crown Prince's modified banner, wreathed in scorching earth flame, firmly into the floor. The emerald banner fluttered without wind, and a surge of vitality dispelled a trace of death qi from the hall. His Highness is still fighting in the chaos himself, seeking a way for our clan to survive. If we old bones can't even defend our home, what face will we have when he returns? His words struck like a hammer and stirred every Dragon Clan member present. They were not alone. Their only hope was still out there. Their duty was to hold the Crystal Palace and wait. Audong is right. Old ancestor, give the order. We vow to live and die with the Dragon Palace. One after another, the elders knelt on one knee, voices firm. Zulong's single eye softened for the briefest moment. He bowed his head and spoke. Hear my command. His voice turned into a roar that carried across the 4 seas and 8 desolations into every dragon bloodline far and wide. All members of the Dragon Clan, wherever you are, return to your sea dragon palaces at once. Delay is forbidden. Aodong, Aonan, Aoshi, Aobei, each of you resume your posts. Take charge of the innate 5 directional banners and enter the 4 extremes formation eyes. Remaining elders, follow me to the central formation eye and take control of the Ren Water Peach Tree. From this day forth, Zulong inhaled and uttered 2 words that echoed like a decree. Seal the sea. We obey the old ancestor's command. At his command, the 4 seas trembled. In the eye of the East Sea, the towering Ren Water Peach Tree shuddered. Billions of roots plunged into the sea veins, drawing the origin water essence from the 4 seas. Boom! An impossibly thick azure pillar of light shot up from the East Sea's formation eye. Simultaneously, from the formation eyes of the South, West, and North Seas rose 3 other pillars, white and black, each magnificent and roaring to meet the blue. The 4 pillars converged above the junction of the 4 seas, then plunged downwards and slammed into the buried Zulong, original dragon vein that had lain dormant beneath the waters for untold eons. Roar! An ancient dragon roar, as if tearing through time, rolled through the ocean depths. A boundless curtain of cobalt light, vast as a sea, rose from the waves and thickened into an impenetrable barrier. Within and above that curtain, thousands of phantom dragon souls swam, roaring in silence and radiating a purifying aura. From the Great Desolation continent, the 4 seas now looked like a single massive pane of blue-glazed glass, sealed, isolating all sound, aura, and heavenly secrets. The Dragon Clan, once overlords of the Great Desolation, had withdrawn from the stage with absolute resolve. On the shores of the East Sea, Emperor Taiyi, chaos bell in hand, halted. Behind him, 1,000,000 demonic soldiers stood with banners that blotted out the sky, and the 365 Zhou demon gods linked their auras as one. The dragon army the Yao had expected to meet wasn't there. Instead, a towering wall of deep blue light confronted them. "What is this?" one demon god asked. "Humph, just the shell of a cowardly turtle," Taiyi sneered. Buoyed by the Tao ancestor's power, his cultivation sat at the peak of late-stage quasi-saint. He felt the great desolation beneath his feet. "Baize," he called without turning. "Your subject reports in." The demon saint Baize stepped forward, glanced at the light wall, and frowned. "Your Majesty, this formation draws on the origin of the 4 seas and is backed by the Zulong dragon vein." "I fear." "Fear?" Taiyi gave Baize's shoulder a light rap with the base of the chaos bell. "Have you grown soft, Baize? Today I will show the myriad races of the Great Desolation that there is no such thing as not easy to breach." He turned to the blue barrier, his voice carrying like thunder. "Listen, mudfish inside. By the Tao ancestors' decree, the Dragon Clan defies heaven and must be punished. You have 10 breaths. Come out and accept death willingly, or I will refine these 4 seas and all of you into nothing." Silence answered him from inside the barrier. No sound, no response. "Good, very good." Taiyi laughed, fury burning. He raised his right hand and gave his first command to the 365 Zhou demon gods. "Form the array. We obey Emperor Taiyi's decree." They answered in unison and flashed into their assigned positions, aligning with the stars above. A cold, solemn vastness flowed over the heaven and earth. "Zhou stars, heed my call. Draw the stars." Boom! Stars appeared in broad daylight. 365 main stars flared with blinding light, briefly outshining the sun star. Thick pillars of starlight descended and were captured by the star banners above the demon gods' heads. The lights coursed through profound formation diagrams and converged at the center of the grand formation. There was no thunderous roar, only a silence that made hearts pound. all the stellar power compressed into a pure white pillar, only 100 zhang across but shimmering with annihilating might. It aimed straight at the blue light curtain over the East Sea Dragon Palace. For this emperor, Tai's eyes blazed with killing intent as he brought his arm down hard. Open, buzz, the divine starlight, condensed from the power of 365 quasi-saints, tore through space and slammed into the 10,000 Dragons World Purification Formation with world-shattering force. The silver-white pillar of light, condensed from the Zhoutian Xingdou Formation, was no longer mere energy. It was a spear of divine punishment, cleaved from the very body of the starry sky. Wherever its tip pointed, things fell utterly silent. The next instant, the spear struck the ethereal blue barrier. There was no earth-shattering roar, only an explosion of white light, billions of times brighter than the sun, like a curtain of brilliance consuming every color between heaven and earth. Where the light passed, the concept of space-time blurred. The East Sea coast's continental shelf collapsed inward for hundreds of miles in absolute silence. Mountains, rivers, and living beings did not smolder into ash. They were simply erased, their existence wiped from the world. Emperor Tai and the million demon soldiers behind him were frozen as if gripped by an invisible hand at the throat. The dominators observing through divine thought also fell into a deathly hush. The vast blue barrier, which had just borne an apocalyptic strike, did not shatter. Instead, it bowed inward in a terrifying arc, like a bow drawn to its absolute limit. Above the barrier, countless spectral dragon souls solidified, and without sound, issued a resolute roar. They came together like chains, wrapping, tearing, devouring the destructive stellar power. A few breaths later, to the stunned gazes of all, the concave barrier slowly sprang back and returned to its original shape. Apart from a slight dimming in color, it was unharmed. How is this possible? The arrogant look on a dominator behind Emperor Tai froze. The fanatic zeal on the faces of the 365 Zhoutian demon gods cooled instantly into bewilderment. The combined strike of 365 quasi-saints, the Zhoutian Xingdou Formation in full fury, could not even break the enemy's defense. This was nothing like the script Dao Ancestor had given them. Your Majesty! Demon Saint Baizi's voice snapped, sharp and laced with a panic he barely recognized in himself. He stared at the barrier, his pupils narrowed to pinpricks. This isn't a formation at all. Baizi's voice trembled, and his face went ashen. They've turned the entire four seas into their flesh and blood and made that Zulong, original dragon, vein their skeleton. The Dragon Clan, they've bound the fate of their whole race to the fate of the primordial water domain. To break this shell, you'd have to evaporate the four seas in an instant and sever that Zulong vein that links heaven and earth. The more he spoke, the more alarmed he became. This isn't a formation. It's a turtle shell forged from the world's water. Emperor Tai's hand clenched the Chaos Bell so hard his knuckles whitened and veins stood out. He had seen the truth. This shell's hardness made his teeth ache. Rage and scorn warred on his face. Great Dragon Clan, he snarled. What a pathetic bunch, mudloaches never seeing the light of day. His laughter rang out, killing intent chilling the air. Do you think hiding in a shell will stop me? Today I will show you in the entire primordial world what the heavenly Tao is, what the true tide of the world is. He turned to the demon god army, his voice a cold wind from the depths of the 9 netherworlds. Zhoutian Xingdou Formation, full power. Draw upon billions of stars, refine this place and the 4 seas for me, as you command. The 365 Zhoutian demon gods forced down their doubts and reconnected their primordial spirits to the starry sky. Above the firmament, there were no longer just 365 stars blazing. There were 36,000, then hundreds of millions of stars. The daytime of the entire primordial continent was forcibly turned into a starlit night. Infinite stellar power was pulled down and merged in front of the formation into a silver spear of light, more than 10 times thicker than before. Dark spatial cracks opened and closed around it like hungry mouths. The pure, ultimate destructive aura froze the smile of Yuanqi Tianzin atop Kunlun Mountain's Yuxu Palace, even tens of millions of miles away. This power, inside the 10,000 Dragons World Purification Formation, The dragon lords of the four seas all spat golden dragon blood at once, their faces drained. Hold on. Zulong's ancient, hoarse voice thundered in their primordial spirits, his single eye shedding tears of blood. Your Highness said that as long as the four seas do not dry up, the grand formation will not perish. Wear them down. Wear them down until your Highness returns. Yes. The four dragon lords exchanged looks that held the resolve to die. They began to burn their dragon chi, ready to give their lives as the final sacrifice for the grand formation. But a destructive pressure, 100 times more terrifying than before, penetrated the formation's defenses and crushed down on the true spirit of every dragon clan member. They looked up through the blue barrier and saw the world-ending spear of light reforming, its tip aimed to pierce the East Sea and the earth veins beneath it. Their hearts sank into a bottomless abyss. This strike, this time, they could not block it. Ha! Worms who never see the light, turn to ash under the heavenly Tao. Outside the formation, Emperor Tai's laugh rolled like thunder. His arm rose to bring down the Chaos Bell with a killing blow. The world-ending spear, condensed from billions of stars, had its tip starlight intensified to the extreme, ready to unleash annihilation. Then a voice sounded. Quiet, soft, like someone speaking a single sentence close to your ear. Too noisy. Time seemed to stop. Emperor Tai's arm, frozen mid-swing, hung in the air. The wild laugh on his face ossified into a strange, unheard expression. The spear of light gave a sharp, unwilling keening. The billions of stellar runes that formed it, as if abandoned by a central command, flared and then flickered chaotically. The million demon soldiers' earth-shattering roars died on the spot. The wind fell silent. The waves stilled. All the sounds between heaven and earth, the battle cries, the breathing, the beating of hearts, were forcibly erased by some incomprehensible power. Absolute silence filled the world. Every gaze Yao, dragon dominator, turned instinctively to the battlefield's center. At some unknown moment, between the sky-darkening demon host and the heaven-supporting blue barrier, one person had appeared. A young Taoist in a green robe stood there, ordinary. His black hair fell across his shoulders. No thunderclap, no dazzling divine light accompanied him. Yet the demonic chi that could rend heaven and earth dissolved like spring snow within 3 feet of him. Killing intent that could freeze a quasi-saint's primordial spirit went docile as a pet dog before him. On the East Sea coast, the tumultuous waters calmed to the stillness of an ancient bronze mirror at his feet. The world-ending spear, condensed by the demon race's grand formation, began to disintegrate inch by inch from its tip. Under the incomprehensible stare of all living beings, it transformed into pure starlight and dissipated back into heaven and earth as if it had never existed. Long Chen? Emperor Tai ground out the name between clenched teeth. How could he be here? Was he not supposed to be in secluded cultivation in the depths of chaos? A primordial fear crawled through Emperor Tai's bones. It was not mere anger, but the kind of dread that rose from the deepest wells of being. A chill ran from his soles to his crown, stiffening him in place. Even at his peak quasi-saint late stage, wielding the heaven-opening supreme treasure, his Chaos Bell, and backed by the Zhou Qianxingdo formation and the heavenly Tao authority granted by Tao ancestor, he felt like an ant under the dome of the heavenly Tao when he looked at that young man. There was nothing, and yet everything. For the first time, the heaven-opening supreme treasure he had carried through countless ages let out a low, urgent warning, as if the bell, a treasure with a spirit, were pleading with him to flee. The bell was afraid. Chapter 129. A single word repelled the demon army, and the Emperor of the East was terrified. That one phrase, so noisy, was like an invisible needle puncturing the taut balloon of tension stretched across the battlefield. Time seemed to thicken into syrup. Emperor Tai's arm, which had been about to swing down, froze midair. His wild laughter congealed into an expression so strange it might have been the result of a paralysis spell. The world-destroying light spear, condensed from the power of billions of stars and poised to unleash annihilation, emitted a sharp, unwilling whine. The countless stellar runes that composed it, like soldiers cut off from their commander, began to flicker and churn chaotically. Starting from the spearhead, they disintegrated inch by inch, turning back into pure starlight and dissolving into the heavens and earth as if they had never existed. The earth-shaking roars of a million demon soldiers stopped abruptly. The wind ceased. The waves fell silent. Every sound in the world, the clash of blades, the roar of beasts, the rasp of breath, the pounding of hearts, was snatched away by an incomprehensible force in an instant. All was silence. Every gaze, Yao race, Dragon Clan, even the powerful beings peering in through their divine abilities, unconsciously turned to the center of the battlefield. No one knew when he had arrived. Between the sky-obscuring Yao army and the towering blue barrier stood an extra person, a young Taoist in a green robe. He stood casually, black hair draped over his shoulders, without any surging phenomena or radiant light. Yet demonic chi potent enough to shred heaven and earth melted away like spring snow whenever it came within 3 feet of him. Killing intent that could freeze a quasi-saint's primordial spirit became as docile as a tamed dog wagging its tail before him. On the East Sea coast, the waters that had been raging in the great battle lay calm beneath his feet like an ancient bronze mirror. Long, Chen? Emperor Tai stared, every syllable forced from between his teeth. How could he be here? Shouldn't he be secluded in cultivation within chaos? Wasn't he grievously wounded by the disrupting flow scheme jointly executed by the Lich races and forced to play the coward? No. Tai's body began to tremble uncontrollably, not with anger, but with a fear that came from the deepest marrow of his life. A cold numbness crawled from his soles to his crown, freezing him solid, rendering him incapable of movement. He couldn't see through him. Despite Tai's cultivation at the peak of quasi-saint late stage, despite wielding the Chaos Bell, despite the Zhou Tianxing Do formation backing him and the heavenly Dao authority bestowed by the Dao ancestor, looking at that one young man made Tai feel like an ant staring up at the whole dome of heaven. There was nothing there, and yet everything. Buzz. The Chaos Bell he held, the world-opening supreme treasure he had nurtured his life for, had accompanied him through countless battles with its proud warlike chime. For the first time, it uttered a low, urgent warning, as if begging him to flee. The treasure had a spirit. It was afraid. Long Chen ignored Tai's stunned state. He merely raised his eyes and swept a calm gaze over the Yao army. His sight finally landed on the 365 Zhoutian demon gods, their auras linked and their bodies wreathed in starlight. Borrowed power is never truly one's own. Long Chen shook his head, as if commenting on a shoddily made pot. Doesn't it feel rough to use? He spoke softly, then uttered a single word with very little fanfare. Disperse. The word itself was light, without ripples of power, but it was the law. The moment it left his mouth, the 365 main stars above the 33rd heaven that resonated with the Zhoutian demon gods and continuously poured the might of the stars down like a torrent dimmed, as if brushed by an invisible giant hand. The 365 pillars of starlight connecting heaven and earth snapped like threads cut at their roots. Pft, pft, pft. Across the East Sea coast, the 365 Zhoutian demon gods who had just been so arrogant, who had thought themselves ascended to heaven in a single step, were punctured balloons, their bodies shuddering violently. Their quasi-saint pressure drained away like a receding tide. Quasi-saint early stage. Grand unity, golden immortal perfection. Grand unity, golden immortal late stage. Their auras plunged, becoming weaker than before they had been forcibly elevated. Mouthfuls of golden demon blood spurted from their mouths and stained the cloud sea beneath them red. The stellar imprints on their brows, the marks of their Zhoutian immortal positions, flickered wildly as if ready to go out. Their borrowed power had been ripped away. Their Dao hearts shattered into fragments in an instant. No! My power! How? My cultivation! Ah! Screams of agony rose and fell. The 365 former Yao marshals, now like mortals drunk on wine, stumbled and fell from the clouds with feeble auras. The Zhou Tianxing Do formation collapsed without a single physical blow. The scene outshone even Long Chen's earlier dismissal of the world-destroying light spear with a single word. If the spear had been a clash of sheer power, this was the absolute suppression of law. Long Chen had not lifted a finger, he had merely spoken, and the Yao race heavenly court's greatest trump card was crippled, 365 quasi-saints reduced to near nothing. What terrifying method was this? Emperor Taiyi stood stupefied. The shock on his face turned to blankness. He could not comprehend what he was witnessing. A divine ability? No divine ability could do this. A law? No saint could strip away authority granted by the heavenly Tao with a single word. 33rd Heaven, Lingxiao Palace. Crack. The armrest of the imperial throne beneath Heavenly Emperor Di Jun, the throne that symbolized the Yao race's supreme authority, crushed into powder under his grip. Through the Hetuluoshu, he saw more clearly than Taiyi did. He saw it. Tao ancestor Hongjun had connected the Jotian stars and the 365 demon gods like invisible threads, granting them power and authority. And Long Chen, with a casual word, had cut those threads like a pair of scissors with a single snip. How dare he? Dijun muttered, his voice trembling for the first time. He finally understood what the Tao ancestor had bestowed. It was not a gift of opportunity, it was a leash. And Long Chen, in front of the whole great desolation, had cut the leashes tied around their Yao race necks. What Dijun felt now was not anger, but a bone-deep chill and pure fear. Kunlun Mountain, Yuxu Palace. Yuanshi Tianzun's smile was gone, replaced by a deathly pallor. He stared into the water mirror, lips trembling but unable to form a word. Sect Master Tongqin paused, wiping the Qingping sword. A radiant light flared in his eyes. Not battle intent, but the wild ecstasy of meeting an equal and witnessing the great Tao. Good, 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 he said it 3 times. This is true freedom, truly seizing even a sliver of life. Tai King Laozi, who had been resting with his eyes closed, opened them slowly. For the first time, ripples ran through his ancient, unshakable gaze. He sighed softly. The Tao is different. The silence remained heavy. Long Chen had accomplished all of it with the faintest of motions, as if dusting his sleeves. He took a single, gentle step forward. That step struck Emperor Taiyi like lightning. His petrified mind snapped back into a flurry of panic. Long Chen looked at him, the corners of his mouth lifting into a playful smile. Now, we can have a good talk about you bringing people into my yard and disturbing my sleep. Chapter 130. The prince stepped on his face, and the emperor was speechless. Emperor Taiyi of the East's mind went blank. Fear, congealing like frost, crawled up his spine to his crown, freezing his primordial spirit and locking his thoughts. He couldn't comprehend it, and had no time to. As a Yao race emperor who had clawed his way to the throne through mountains of corpses and seas of blood, his body moved faster than his mind. Pleading for mercy? Those words did not exist in Taiyi's vocabulary. Flee? Behind him were millions of demon soldiers and the heavenly court's reputation. He could not run. Only one choice remained: fight to the death. A guttural roar tore from his chest, not of a living man, but of a force that would take everything with him. Blinding solar true fire erupted around him, golden flames not merely scorching, but cold and corrosive, the hue of ruin. He burned his Yao Emperor origin. Throwing caution to the wind, he poured every scrap of the power the Tao ancestor had forced into him, along with his own burning origin, into the chaos bell in his arms. Die with me! Dong! The bell rang. The sound was no longer simply sound, but the erasure of a law. In an instant, the world along the East Sea coast froze. Wind stopped, clouds hung still, even light seemed suspended. The river of time stuttered. A visible ripple of destruction surged toward Long Chen, carrying the might to suppress earth, water, fire, and wind, to freeze past and future. Wherever it passed, space shattered like fragile glass, layer by layer, revealing the dead, empty chaos beyond. This was Taiyi's all-or-nothing strike, a power far beyond that of a quasi-saint. Long Chen watched in silence, his eyes devoid of hatred, only a cool indifference, as if observing children at play. When the destructive ripple was almost upon him, he did nothing. He did not summon a protective immortal light. He merely raised his right hand. 5 slender fingers pointed at the ancient, weathered chaos bell and clenched. Then something that made the hearts of Honghuang's greatest cultivators stop unfolded. The law of time, strong enough to freeze a quasi-saint's primordial spirit, flowed obediently around Long Chen when the ripple drew within 3 feet of him. The spatial sound waves, the kind that could tear apart whole worlds, melted like snow under the blazing sun as they reached him. The small patch of space where Long Chen stood was isolated from Honghuang, impervious to its laws. The great laws of the world were powerless here. No. Tai's eyes nearly bulged from their sockets. His heaven-opening supreme treasure, the chaos bell he had relied on to suppress an era, had failed? No, it had not failed. Long Chen's hand passed through the layers of destructive ripples as if brushing aside morning mist, and the tip of his index finger tapped the body of the chaos bell. Ding! A soft, clear chime, like a wind chime stirred by a breeze, sounded. That gentle note somehow eclipsed the bell's own universe-suppressing toll. Pfft! Tai's body folded backward. A mouthful of scalding golden demon blood shot from his lips and sprayed across the sky. His primordial spirit felt as if struck with an invisible hammer. The unbreakable bloodline link between him and the chaos bell snapped under that single touch. Buzz! The chaos bell screamed, its light instantly dimming like a wronged child, and spun backward. Before Tai could recover, a green-robed figure stood before him, too fast for Tai's divine thought to track, leaving only an afterimage. Long Chen looked down at the face beneath him. Horror, unbearable pain, bewilderment. He shook his head. As I said, borrowed things are ultimately fake, he murmured coldly. Now the dream ends. Without using magic, divine ability, or any Dao, just an ordinary lift of his foot, he brought it down. Bang! The dull thud made every heart skip. Under the stunned eyes of millions of demon soldiers, beneath the watchful gazes of the three pure ones on Kunlun Mountain, the ancestral witches on Mount Buzhou, Mingye in the Sea of Blood, and countless other powerful beings, even the heavenly emperor above the 33 heavens, Long Chen's foot landed squarely on Emperor Taiyi of the East's face. That arrogant, awe-inspiring emperor, this Yao race sovereign who wielded a heaven-opening supreme treasure and fancied himself unrivaled beneath a saint, was driven like a meteor from the 9 heavens and stomped hard into the East Sea coast. Rumble, the earth screamed. A landmass spanning hundreds of millions of miles sagged. A vast sinkhole yawned open. At its center, Taiyi lay spread-eagled, embedded deep in rock, every bone shattered, his golden imperial robe reduced to rags. The clear imprint of a boot on his face was unmistakable. He was not dead. If Long Chen had wanted him dead, not even dust would remain. But there at the bottom of the pit, Taiyi wished he were. A heavy silence fell across Honghuang. In Yuxu Palace on Kunlun Mountain, Yuanshi Tianzun's jade cup crumbled to powder. Tea trickled through his fingers as he sat frozen. On Mount Buzhou, the 12 ancestral witches went from stunned to delighted, while Zhu Rong slapped his thigh and laughed until the heavens shook. "Ha ha! Well stomped! I've hated that pompous, flat-feathered bird for years." "Refreshing," others cried. 33rd Heaven, Lingxiao Palace. Dijun's hands crushed the armrest of his imperial throne, made of chaos divine gold, into powder. Color drained from his face. Humiliation, unbearable humiliation, burned in him. That foot had not just pressed Taiyi's face into the ground. It had ground the dignity and honor of the Demon Clan Heavenly Court into the dust. A suppressed growl, like a wounded beast, tore from the Heavenly Emperor's throat. He wanted to descend and tear Long Chen limb from limb, but his body felt pinned beneath countless divine mountains, nailed to the throne by 1,000 instincts. Reason screamed in his mind, "Do not go. If you do, your fate will be worse than Taiyi's." Above the sinkhole, Long Chen withdrew his foot and brushed his green robe clean, not a speck of dust on it. He tilted his head and looked up, his gaze piercing through boundless space and the barrier of the 33 heavens to rest on Lingxiao Palace and Dijun. It was a calm gaze, but Dijun felt utterly exposed. All his schemes, his fury, his majesty turned to farce beneath that look. Long Chen smiled faintly. His voice, not loud, nevertheless carried across Honghuang and into Dijun's ears. Dao ancestors' decree, destinies chosen, so this was his purpose in sending you all? He paused, the tone edged with mockery. To have your brother offer his face for me to step on? He let the words hang a moment, then said plainly, Dijun, your brother has fallen. As his elder brother, aren't you going to come down and help him up? Chapter 131. Tear down your Nantianmen and feed it to the dogs. Dijun didn't move. He sat frozen on the imperial throne, the armrest, cast from chaos divine gold, crushed to dust in his hands. His whole body trembled, not from fear, but from rage and humiliation that surpassed what his primordial spirit could bear, leaving his imperial body out of control. Inside Lingxiao Palace, there was a deathly silence. All the demon gods bowed their heads. not daring to meet the heavenly emperor's face on the throne, much less to imagine what was happening on the East Sea coast. The entire Great Desolation waited for his reaction. Countless divine thoughts converged from the 9 heavens and 10 earths, from the netherworld Blood Sea, from Kunlun Mountain and Longevity Mountain. Everyone watched, awaiting the decision of the demon clan heavenly emperor. Would he descend to fight to the death for the honor of the Yao race and the humiliation of his brother? Or would he swallow this blood and endure a shame that would be carved into history forever? Time had never been so cruel. 1 breath, 2, 10. Dijun's fists, veins bulging with strain, finally relaxed. He chose the latter. Reason told him he could not act. Long Chen daring this meant he wasn't afraid of Dijun coming down. He was counting on it. On the East Sea coast, Long Chen looked toward the 33rd heaven without surprise. He even shook his head slightly, bored. The disappointment in his eyes was plain. Heavenly Emperor? Came a light, scornful chuckle that echoed across the Great Desolation. A good-for-nothing who won't even pick up his own brother while he's being trampled. Does he deserve to be called an emperor at all? The voice was soft, but like billions of slaps, it crossed space and time and struck every demon god in Lingxiao Palace, burning their faces. That's enough. Long Chen instantly lost interest. He no longer looked at Tai Yi like a dead dog in the deep pit, nor at the heavenly emperor above the 33rd heaven who had disappointed him. His gaze drifted upward, passing over the million demon soldiers frozen into statues, and finally rested on the 33rd heaven itself. That magnificent gate, wreathed in immortal light and purple chi, the glory and face of the demon clan heavenly court, the South Heaven Gate. This gate is built quite well, Long Chen said casually, as if strolling through his own backyard. Too bad. It's an eyesore. It's blocking my view. As soon as he spoke, he raised his right hand. He called no magic, stirred no great Tao. He merely extended it in a casual gesture. But to all watching, that hand defied reality. It extended infinitely upward and swelled without end, blotting out the sun and sky, spanning the boundless space-time above the 33rd heaven. A colossal hand appeared above the South Heaven Gate, casting a shadow that dimmed the entire heavenly court. What is he doing? A demon god in Lingxiao Palace cried out in a tone of disbelief and terror. Dijun sprang from the imperial throne, eyes wide, pupils pinprick small. He tried to stop it, frantically activating the Heitu Luoshu, the Yellow River map and Luo River diagram, to engage the heavenly court's grand defensive formation. But that hand was outside this space-time. It ignored formations and laws as if they didn't exist. The giant hand closed around the South Heaven Gate, not with a grab or a squeeze, but with a gentle, deliberate clasp. The gate, a top-tier acquired spirit treasure that had gathered the Yao race's endless luck and had been refined from innumerable divine materials, flared with unprecedented light. The sun, moon, stars, and the totems of 10,000 demons carved upon it spun wildly, trying to break free. Long Chen's hand paused. Quite sturdy, he murmured, then his 5 fingers tightened. Then, shatter. A roar that did not belong to this world rent the air, as if the heavenly Tao itself were being torn apart. The South Heaven Gate, symbol of the Yao race's supreme glory, which had overlooked the Great Desolation for billions of years, was crushed like a clay model in a child's hand. Cracks crawled across its surface. The formation runes wailed and then fell apart. Finally, under Dijun's blood-red glare, the gate exploded into fragments. Countless golden shards carrying the luck of the Yao race became a sorrowful rain of light and fire, scattering from above the 9 heavens and falling over the lands of the Great Desolation. Pfft! Dijun was struck as though by lightning, coughing up a mouthful of golden imperial blood that stained the dragon table before him. Pfft! Pfft! Inside and outside the palace, from the demon sages to the heavenly soldiers, every being felt a violent shock in their minds at the moment the South Heaven Gate shattered. They spat blood in unison, their chi withered. The South Heaven Gate was not only the heavenly court's face, but also a convergence of the Yao race's luck. The gate's destruction damaged that luck itself. This was a foundational injury. No, Dijun could no longer contain the madness clawing at his heart. He roared toward the sky with an inhuman cry. 2 streams of golden blood tears ran from the corners of his eyes. Long Chen, You and I will not rest until one of us is dead." His venomous voice echoed through the 33rd heaven. Long Chen, however, calmly withdrew his hand, watching a little bit of golden dust slide from between his fingers as if he'd only brushed off dirt. He turned his head back to Lingxiao Palace and said indifferently, "What's all the fuss about? If you come to my doorstep and make a scene, you should be ready for your main gate to be torn down. That's only fair." He paused, as if remembering something, and added, surveying the scattered fragments with mock seriousness, "Oh, right. The materials of this gate aren't bad. If you pick them up, grind them, and feed them to dogs, they might put on a few pounds." Pfft. At those words, Dijun sputtered blood again, nearly collapsing from the imperial throne. To kill was one thing, to annihilate their most cherished glory and then say it's fit only to feed to dogs, this struck at the heart. On Kunlun Mountain at Yuxu Palace, Yuanshi Tianzun's face had gone ashen as he watched the figure in the water mirror stay calm after demolishing the Heavenly Court's main gate. Fear, raw and unbidden, rose up in him. This Long Chen was a lawless madman, one who dared to slap the Dao ancestor's face and tear down the Heavenly Court. On Mount Buzhou in Pangu Hall, Zhurong slammed his fist into the ground and laughed uproariously. "Wonderful, simply wonderful. I always thought that gate was an eyesore. This kid, he's to my taste." Long Chen paid no further attention to the wailing in the heavens. He returned his gaze to the East Sea coast, to the million demon soldiers who were petrified and barely clinging to their weapons, and finally to the ancient bell suspended in midair, dimly glowing because its master was gravely wounded. The Chaos Bell. Now it's time to settle the compensation. Long Chen's figure vanished from where he stood and reappeared beside the Chaos Bell. The surrounding demon soldiers tried to move, but found their bodies unresponsive. They could only watch helplessly. Long Chen reached out, not toward Tai Yi in the deep pit, nor at the demon soldiers, but to run his fingers over the Chaos Bell's profound, ancient patterns, as if admiring a rare treasure. "This bell is not bad," he said, loudly enough that every member of the Yao race heard him. "This venerable one has taken a liking to it." Chapter 132. The Chaos Bell rings, and the prince borrows the treasure. "How dare you!" From the depths of the pit came a hoarse voice like a broken bellows. Emperor Tai of the East struggled to his feet. Blood soaked his golden imperial robe, the fabric torn and clinging to him, dirt smeared over his body and hair in disarray. There was no trace of the demon emperor's former glory. His eyes were bloodshot, fixed on Long Chen's hand, reaching for the Chaos Bell. That bell was his innate treasure, the root he had carried since being born from the Sun Star. It was his life. To take it would be like ripping out his spine while he still breathed. Even if I die, I will never let you lay a hand on it." A beast-like roar tore from deep in Tai Yi's throat as pale golden sun true fire erupted from every pore of his body. He began burning his demon emperor origin, using his very existence as the last fuel source. His already weakened aura surged in a wild, self-destructive torrent. From the depths of his primordial spirit, he summoned the Chaos Bell back with everything he had left. "Come back!" The Chaos Bell trembled violently and emitted a mournful wail. It fought, yearning to return to its master, but an indescribable will, like a realm beyond the Honghuang world, held it fast. Long Chen's fingers continued to trace the ancient patterns on the bell without looking back at Tai Yi. Calmly, he said a single word: "Noisy." That one word was casual and untroubled. To Tai Yi, though, it struck harder than any curse. It was a red-hot poker, piercing the last shred of dignity left in the demon emperor. What remained of emperor? "Ah!" Tai Yi snapped. He abandoned the attempt to reclaim the bell and condensed all the power from burning his origin into a destructive sphere of light, hurled at Long Chen in a reckless suicide attack. He meant to self-detonate, the final self-destruction of a peak quasi-saint, an emperor who once wielded a heaven-opening treasure, contained enough force to wipe half the East Sea and its coastal continents off the map of the Honghuang world. Long Chen still did not turn. He did not even take his hand off the bell. With his free hand, he raised two fingers and, pointing at Tai Yi, made a light motion. Quiet. In the next instant, Tai Yi's self-detonation, an energy meant to tear heaven and earth apart, went mute, as if a painting were being dismantled from within. Its laws, energy, and runes were torn apart by a higher will and reverted to their most primitive spiritual qi before dissipating into the air. The whole process occurred in eerie silence. Tai's body collapsed to the pit floor as if all his bones had been removed. He could no longer move a single muscle. The burning madness in his eyes went out, leaving only hollow, dead ash. Long Chen's indifference had stripped him of everything more effectively than death. With the disturbance dealt with, Long Chen turned his attention fully to the Chaos Bell. The artifact spirit still resisted instinctively. A haze of chaos chi rose over its surface, and faintly the phantom of a three-legged golden crow appeared on the bell's wall, roaring at Long Chen, the imprint of Tai's will. "A bit interesting," Long Chen said at last, smiling. "You still want to keep someone else's imprint when you're in front of me?" He extended a finger. At the fingertip, a wisp of purple-golden chi slowly condensed and swirled, a faint thing, yet it felt like the origin of all Tao, the beginning of the universe, containing the creative essence to remold heaven and earth. With that finger, he tapped the body of the Chaos Bell. Dong! This time the sound was not a soft chime. It was a vast bell tone that seemed struck from the origin of the great Tao, penetrating past, present, and future, resonating across the entire Honghuang world and even into the 33rd heaven and the endless chaos. This bell had not been sounded by Tai. It was struck by Long Chen, who used his own Tao to activate the heaven-opening treasure. The moment the bell rang, all laws across the Honghuang world recoiled. The river of time, no longer frozen, blanked for a moment. Space ceased to be fixed, overridden by a new rule. The thoughts of all living things, from quasi-saint mighty figures to plants and spirit beasts, were forcibly emptied by the chime. On Kunlun Mountain, the faces of the three pure Taoists distorted. They sensed that the heavenly Tao rules of the Honghuang world were being forcibly expelled. On Mount Buzo, the 12 ancestral witches rose as one, their qi and blood tied to the land, feeling for the first time a separation from the world. In the 33rd heaven, Lingxiao Palace, there was a thud as Dijun's legs gave way, and he slipped from his supreme throne. He felt the last connection between himself and Tai, and between his bloodline and the Chaos Bell, shatter under the bell's sound. Deep within Xianxia Palace, Tao ancestor Hongjun, eyes closed, heard a crack run through the ancient stone platform beneath him, a deeper, more terrifying fissure appearing where old repairs had been made. This bell chime no longer manifested the Chaos Bell's old suppression and freezing. It was a brand new law of creation and dominion, Long Chen's Tao. He used the heaven-opening treasure to proclaim his law and define new principles across the Honghuang world. When the bell's echo faded, heaven and earth settled back to normal. The Chaos Bell, however, fell utterly silent. The imprint of the three-legged golden crow melted away without a trace like snow under a fierce sun. It ceased to struggle. No longer resisting, it floated obediently in Long Chen's palm, humming softly, radiating reverence and closeness. The artifact spirit had submitted, not through force, but by being absorbed into a higher great Tao. Long Chen reached out and grasped the handle. It felt cool, and a sense of authority, of naming and defining all things, flowed up his arm into his primordial spirit. He hefted the bell in his hand. Formed from the blade of Pangu's axe, meant to suppress earth, water, fire, and wind, that's a solid concept, he mused. Unfortunately, the refining was crude. The Pangu evil chi and chaos chi weren't fully removed. Barely usable. Crude, barely usable. Those who perceived the scene with divine thought felt their Tao hearts struck like a hammer. That was the Chaos Bell, one of the three great heaven-opening treasures, and Long Chen dismissed it as a semi-finished product that needed reforging. He ignored the stunned, incredulous gazes. The dark blue light curtain behind him parted silently. Candle Dragon, leaning on his dragon head staff, stood at the entrance, flanked by the dragon lords of the Four Seas and a group of dragon clan elders. Their faces no longer showed the feral joy of surviving catastrophe. Instead, they were full of reverence and trepidation, as if facing a god. "Your Highness." Candle Dragon's lips trembled. He was about to lead the entire dragon clan in kneeling. Long Chen waved a hand. A gentle, irresistible force stopped them. "Stand tall," he said. "Don't disgrace the dragon clan." He carried the Chaos Bell as casually as if it were a brass gong bought from a street vendor and walked into the myriad dragon array. Close the gate. His gaze seemed to pierce through the array's light curtain and the nine heavens gale, fixing once more on Lingxiao Palace in the 33rd heaven. There was no warmth in his eyes. I tore down his house door and took his brother's toy. This matter is not over yet. His voice was not loud, but it cut into Lingxiao Palace and reached Dijun's ears. Dijun, how long are you going to keep watching from up there? Long Chen's tone was calm, stating a simple fact. I'll give you a chance. Come down and fight me. He paused, then delivered words that made the entire Honghuang world feel suffocated. Or, kneel and kowtow to my dragon clan in apology. Kneel and kowtow in apology. Those 6 words, like bolts of divine lightning from the 9 heavens, struck the Lingxiao Palace and slammed into the heavenly Emperor Dijun himself. The entire heavenly court fell deathly silent. All the Yao gods bowed their heads, afraid to meet His Majesty's gaze on the imperial throne. Dijun's body trembled. His face shifted from white to green, then from green to purple, then finally to a sinister black. From his eyes poured not the true sunfire, but the purest, most venomous hatred and killing intent, enough to incinerate everything. Who was he? The Yao Emperor Dijun, the ordained protagonist of heaven and earth, the supreme dominator who controlled the heavenly court and ordered all living things. Now some remnant of the Dragon Clan, appearing from who knew where, had dismantled his South Heaven gate in front of the entire Grand Mist, stamped on his brother's face, seized his supreme treasure, and demanded that he kneel and kowtow in apology. It was unbearable, an insult beyond imagining. Long Chen, a roar squeezed from Dijun's throat, repressed to the point of tearing. He sprang to his feet, and a terrifying aura of quasi-saint perfection erupted, making the Lingxiao Palace groan and shudder beneath it. He was going to descend. He would fight that bastard to the death. Even if he died, he would preserve his last shred of dignity as heavenly emperor. Just as he was about to charge out, an ancient, indifferent voice, devoid of emotion, resonated directly into the depths of his primordial spirit. Retreat. It was Hongjun. Dijun's body froze. The madness in his eyes was doused by a bucket of ice water, leaving only coldness and a hot needle of unwillingness. Dao Ancestor. Dijun's voice was hoarse and bloodshot. He's gone too far. To humiliate my heavenly court is to insult you. Why won't you let your disciple act? Your disciple has the Zhou Tianxing Do formation and the mandate of the heavenly Dao. I might not be unable to fight him. Hongjun's tone remained as frigid as ancient ice. The general trend of the heavenly Dao has its fixed destiny. This child is a variable. A variable should be crushed by the general trend. No single person may contend with it. Your mission is to consolidate the Yao race, accumulate strength, and when the time is ripe, unify the Grand Mist. That is heaven's will. Retreat. Then the voice faded. Dijun stood like a statue. He understood. The Dao Ancestor wanted him to endure, to swallow this humiliation, 1,000,000,000 times more bitter than bitter gourd before the whole Grand Mist. What destiny? What ordained protagonist of heaven and earth? All lies. In Hongjun's view, he and his Yao race were nothing but a blade, a tool to eliminate variables. Once used, they could be discarded. An unprecedented desolation flooded Dijun. He hated Long Chen, and he loathed Dao Ancestor Hongjun all the more for treating living beings like straw dogs. Above the East Sea, Long Chen waited a long time, but Dijun did not descend. He puffed, half bored and half amused. Coward! Of course he knew Hongjun had intervened. His earlier words had been meant to test the old man's limits. It seemed that Hongjun, in pursuit of merging with the Dao, could endure anything. As long as Long Chen didn't truly attack the heavenly court or annihilate the Yao race, Hongjun was unlikely to act personally. Since he won't come down, is that it? Is this matter settled? Long Chen mused, stroking his chin. No, too boring. A mischievous idea flashed in his eyes. He cleared his throat and once more projected his voice across the Grand Mist. Dijun, since you won't come down, this dominator is not unreasonable. How about this? Your brother trampled the flowers and plants on my East Sea coast. Your feathered minions frightened my fish and shrimp, and the dust from your broken gate polluted the waters of my 4 seas. You need to compensate, right? Above the Lingxiao Palace, the calm Dijun heard the words and went pale with fury, as if he'd swallowed molten iron. He almost spat blood. I trampled your flowers, I scared your fish, My broken gate polluted your water. How brazen! Who came to cause trouble at his door? Who dismantled his gate? Who stomped on his brother? Dijun trembled, aching to descend and kill Long Chen, but Hong Jun's command weighed on him like a mountain. He could only choke out, "What do you want?" Long Chen's expression turned sheepish, as if lecturing a wayward student. This dominator's demands aren't extravagant. First, your brother's broken bell, very pleasing to the eye, so I'll take it as compensation for emotional distress. Second, your 365 little birds have shallow Dao cultivation and are unworthy of their stations. Holding the Zhou Tianxing fans is a waste. Send me those 365 star fans, and I'll keep them safe for you. Third, he paused, stroking his chin in mock thought. Aren't you the Heavenly Emperor? Don't you possess the Heitu and Luoshu, the river diagram and Luo river book that can deduce the Zhou Tianxing Do? I've recently taken an interest in stargazing. Send me those two broken diagrams so I can study them. At once the Grand Mist fell into stunned silence. The assembled powers turned on Long Chen as if looking at a lunatic. He had just demanded the Chaos Bell, the Zhou Tianxing fans, the Heitu and Luoshu, stripping the Yao Heavenly Court bare of its foundations. This wasn't mere extortion, it was desecration of the Yao race's ancestral legacy. You are going too far. Dijun couldn't hold it in. He spat a mouthful of purplish gold imperial blood that stained the imperial desk. His eyes went ink-black, full of boundless resentment and demonic thoughts. A heart demon had taken root within him. Long Chen, however, seemed unbothered. He scratched his ear impatiently. What? Reluctant? If you refuse, then fine. This dominator will go up and take them myself. He lifted a foot, aiming for the 33rd heaven. At that instant, the ancient, indifferent, majestic voice sounded for the third time. It no longer came as a private telepathic command, but as a magnificent heavenly might that rolled through heaven and earth across the entire Grand Mist. Enough! Chapter 134. The demons retreated, and the dragons were reborn. Enough! Those two words were no longer mere speech. They were the heavenly constitution, a decree, the condensed will of the great desolation's heavenly Tao. The moment they sounded over the East Sea coast, the placid sea that had been subdued by Long Chen churned once more into towering waves. The sky boiled. Winds and clouds changed hues as purple lightning, like enormous dragons, ripped through the heavens with deafening roars. An indescribable, irresistible divine might descended from the 9 heavens and pressed down on Long Chen. It was Hongjun's warning, his final bottom line. Hongjun could tolerate Long Chen humiliating the Yao race and even snatching the Chaos Bell. But the Zhoutian Star Banner and the Hetu Luoshu were the foundation of the Zhoutian Star Do Grand Array, divinely appointed tools of the heavenly Tao to counter the witch race and propel the Great Tribulation. They could not be lost. Every mighty being watching held their breath. The true spectacle was beginning. The first head-on clash between this variable and the heavenly Tao. Would Long Chen fall back? Facing a supreme divine might capable of pulverizing a quasi-saint, Long Chen merely lifted his eyelids. The sneer vanished from his face, replaced by a colder, loftier composure. Hongjun, he spoke slowly. His voice was not loud, yet it somehow drowned out the thunder above. Are you instructing me on how to handle things? He did not release any chi, but behind him a blur coalesced into a pocket world wrapped in purple gold light. When the divine might that had been suppressing him touched that world, it melted away as if ice under a scorching sun. Hiss! A wave of astonished exhalation swept the great desolation. He had blocked it. He had actually met the Tao Ancestor's strike and held firm. Even though Tao Ancestor had not unleashed his full force, this was still the might of a saint, the weight of the heavenly Tao. In Xianxia Palace, for the first time, a flicker of solemnity crossed Hongjun's usually impassive face. He had misjudged this variable. Long Chen's independent realm had grown to the point where it could contend with the great desolation's heavenly Tao. Though still fragile, in essence, the two were on even footing. If the battle continued, unless Hongjun interrupted his integration with the Tao and used his true body, there was nothing he could do. And once he broke that integration, his whole plan would be jeopardized. A moment of struggle passed through Hongjun's eyes, then was swiftly replaced by ruthless calculation. He would not sacrifice the bigger trend for a short-term win. The general drift of the heavenly Tao was irreversible. Let this variable ravage a bit longer. Once his integration with the Tao completed, it would be his death day. Having resolved this, the supreme divine might that smothered the East Sea coast ebbed away like a receding tide. Hongjun retreated, again. Long Chen's lips curved into a lazy smile. That's better. We're all people of face. Outright slaughter is unsightly. He had achieved what he intended, established his authority, tested a bottom line, and sounded a warning. It was time to finish. Glancing at the 33rd heaven, his voice carried over the battlefield. Dijun, for Tao Ancestor's face, I'll spare you today. The Hetu Luoshu and the Zhou Star Banner will be temporarily kept with me. However, while the death penalty is waived, the living punishment cannot be avoided. His gaze swept over the disheartened demon clan army. Their battle intent vanished. Your Yao race shall not set so much as a half step outside the 33rd heaven for 10,000 years. All demon gods reflect in private, make no mistakes. He let the words hang, then smiled. If anyone disobeys, this lord won't mind coming to your doorstep and sitting down again. Above the Lingxiao palace, Dijun trembled at rage and humiliation, but he could only bide his time. He could do nothing, and you. Long Chen's eyes found Emperor Taiyi of the East, lying senseless in the bottomless pit. Considering your cultivation, I won't kill you today. Leave. He waved a hand. A gentle force lifted Taiyi from the pit, and along with a faintly glowing chaos bell, hurled him back to the front of the demon clan formation. No, Long Chen had thrown Taiyi only. The chaos bell remained in his hand. This bell is borrowed, he said. When I'm in the mood, perhaps I'll return it. With that settled, Long Chen ignored the stupefied Yao race. He turned and gestured to the vast blue light curtain behind him. Open the door. Go home. Eat. The 10,000 dragons purifying world array opened a portal. Under the gaze of all the great desolation, Long Chen, carrying that heaven-opening supreme treasure that had made so many envious as if it were mere scrap, strolled in with lazy composure. The gate shut behind him. The East Sea calmed as if the world-shaking confrontation had never happened. Only the ruined demon clan army remained on the shore, and the bottomless, gigantic humanoid pit, the monument to the Yao race's complete humiliation. After an interval unknown in length, Dijun's hoarse, exhausted voice echoed from the 9 heavens. Retreat the troops. The demon clouds that had choked the sky began to thin. The demon clan army that had arrived like a tide of invincibility now shuffled back in disarray toward the 33rd heaven, a flock of beaten roosters. What might have been a battle to decide the Great Desolation's future ended anticlimactically. But everyone understood, this was only the beginning. East Sea, Crystal Palace. Long Chen's figure appeared in the coiling dragon hall, and an eruption of cheers shattered the air. Long live His Highness! Long live the Dragon Clan! Candle Dragon, Aodong, the 4 Seas Dragon Lords, and all the elders prostrated themselves, trembling with emotion. Tears of hot joy streamed down their faces. They had won. Against the Demon Clan Heavenly Court, against 365 quasi-saints and the divine might of Hongjun, they had not only survived, but reclaimed their dignity. Their crown prince, their king, had repelled demon soldiers with a word, trampled Emperor Taiyi with a foot, seized the South Gate with a hand, and given Tao Ancestor a rebuke. What power he wielded! What dominance! In that instant, the Dragon Clan's centuries of humiliation and resentment vanished, replaced by a pride and glory never before felt. Long Chen watched his clansmen below and allowed himself a smile. He savored the moment. He knew he had reknit the Dragon Clan's backbone and returned its soul. This was the clan he wanted, bold, unbowed to heaven or earth, trusting only themselves. When the cheers had subsided a little, Long Chen spoke, his voice resonant through the hall. All rise. Today is an auspicious day. Issue orders. The 4 Seas shall celebrate with a grand feast lasting 3 days. Every participating clansman, regardless of rank, will receive generous rewards. The families of those who fell will be supported by the Dragon Clan for 10,000 generations. Yes! Prime Minister Turtle accepted the order and hurried off. Long Chen's gaze passed over Candle Dragon, Aodong, and the other Dragon Lords. You few, follow me. With that, he rose from the throne and left the hall. The Eye of the East Sea. This was the Dragon Clan's Forbidden Land within Forbidden Lands, the core where the dragon veins of the four seas converged. The space felt viscous, every drop of water was saturated with innate Ren water origin, and as far as the eye could see, dark blue stretched without end. Long Chen appeared out of thin air. Behind him came Candle Dragon, Aodong, and the Dragon Lords of the Four Seas, their faces still showing awe and their steps a little unsteady. When they clearly saw the large bell Long Chen held casually in one hand, their hearts gave extra knocks. The bell didn't look huge, but its surface seemed to contain an unopened chaos, a universe folded inward, exuding a pressure older than the world. This is the legendary Chaos Bell? The South Sea Dragon Lord Aonan's voice was dry. He had lived countless ages and had never seen this infamous heaven-opening supreme treasure up close. The North Sea Dragon Lord Aobei was rough and straightforward. He couldn't help reaching out, wanting to touch it. "Don't move," Long Chen said coolly. Aobei's hand froze. Long Chen tossed the Chaos Bell up a little. The bell hovered silently, but the space-time of the entire Eye of the East Sea solidified as if poured into resin. The flowing innate water origin chi stopped. Shimmering lights froze. Even the thoughts of quasi-saints like Candle Dragon and the others slowed as if filled with cement. Aobei's face reddened. He felt his primordial spirit pressed as if by an invisible weight. Long Chen extended a finger and flicked the bell's surface. Ding! A crisp chime. Space-time resumed. The crushing pressure that had filled the dragon's chests vanished. Aobei staggered back, breathing hard, his gaze at the bell now mixed with fear. "Did you feel that?" Long Chen asked. Aobei nodded, still shaken. "I felt it. Overbearing, unreasonable. Just being near it wants to suppress everything, even its own people." "A fool," Long Chen said. No one dared retort. "Pangu was good at opening heaven, but not at artifact refining," Long Chen continued, gesturing at the bell. "The Pangu axe shattered and its blade was remade into this bell. The idea's sound. It can suppress earth, water, fire, and wind. Unfortunately, the workmanship is crude." He pointed to a complex pattern carved on the bell. This pattern was meant to evolve the stars and stabilize space, but it was mixed with unpurified heaven-opening evil chi. The result? While it stabilizes space, it also freezes time and suppresses indiscriminately. Even Tai had to be careful using it. Ridiculous. He pointed to another place. Here the artifact spirit was born, but its intelligence is like a newborn, only instinctively protecting its master. When Aobei reached to touch it, it tried to suppress him. On a battlefield, that kind of help causes more trouble than it's worth. With every word, Candle Dragon and the others twitched. The heaven-opening supreme treasure that had been their marvel was being reduced to a defective relic by the Crown Prince. Aodong asked cautiously, "Your Highness, do you mean this bell can be modified?" "Modified?" Long Chen grinned, showing white teeth. "No, it will be reforged." Materials of such quality wasted in Tai's hands. What a sin against heaven. Today I'll show you what artifact refining truly is. Purple gold light burst from Long Chen's eyes. "With my Dragon Clan's karma as the furnace," he inhaled. The golden pool of karma beneath him, accumulated by the Dragon Clan over uncountable eons, boiled at once. Golden divine dragons, condensed from pure karma light, roared skyward and crashed into the Chaos Bell, one after another. The bell trembled. The illusory image of the three-legged golden crow writhed across its surface, roaring in resistance. "Humph, the trashy imprint of a former master dares to act presumptuously?" Long Chen didn't reply. He intensified the suction. The golden karma dragons licked at the bell like flame, fiercely scorching it. Black-gray heaven-opening evil chi embedded deep in the bell's body was forcibly expelled by the golden light. They hissed and turned to smoke in midair, purified and dispersed. The bell's sound grew clearer, less violent. "With my Dragon Clan's spiritual root as the water," Long Chen pointed to the sky. The innate spiritual root planted in the eye of the East Sea, the Ren water pantao tree, swayed though there was no wind. Its countless branches shed innate Ren water origin like a waterfall, a dark blue celestial river pouring down from the heavens, rinsing the bell's golden glow. Alternating heat and cold popped like beans from within the bell as more mixed chaos chi was refined out, turning to wisps of smoke. Candle Dragon and the others watched dumbfounded. Using boundless karma as fuel and the innate spiritual root as quenching water, just to reforge a bell? The extravagance and domineering power were beyond their comprehension. Your Highness, you're remaking this bell into the image of our dragon clan. The West Sea Dragon Lord Ao Run's beard trembled with excitement. Long Chen wasn't finished. He brought his fingers together like a blade and drew them across his chest. No wound appeared, yet a drop of purple-gold blood seeped from beneath his skin. Small as it was, it seemed to contain the supreme Tao resonance of creation and destruction. Finally, with my Tao, I shall dot its eyes. He flicked his finger. The drop tore through space and landed with uncanny precision on the very top of the Chaos Bell. Boom! It felt as if heaven and earth were recreated in that instant. The moment the drop merged, the bell erupted in indescribable light. A vast, ancient, boundless, and at the same time joyful and new, chime rang out from the eye of the East Sea, resounding through the Four Seas dragon domain. The bell's sound was no longer oppressive, it was a proclamation. The Pangu imprint and the Yao Sun totem shattered into primitive runes that, guided by Long Chen's Tao resonance, reorganized and evolved. Sun, moon, stars, constellations, mountains, rivers, seas, scenes flashed by like a panorama. At last, all the patterns converged into a new totem, a divine dragon playing with a pearl, myriad dragons paying homage. The bell still looked like an ancient, simple bell, but its aura had changed completely. The barbaric chi of chaos was gone, replaced by imperial majesty that commanded all waters and the surging luck of the thriving dragon clan. From today onward, you shall not be called the Chaos Bell. Long Chen's voice was calm, but carried to every corner of the Four Seas dragon domain. You are the supreme treasure of my dragon clan, suppressing the luck of the Four Seas and commanding all waters to pay homage. Your name shall be the Four Seas Suppressing Dragon Bell. The reborn bell gave a joyful hum and flew to Long Chen's head, releasing billions of streams of profound yellow karma chi that wrapped around him like a crown. The artifact spirit was reborn. The supreme treasure had been successfully reforged. Then the Four Seas Suppressing Dragon Bell trembled. Its mouth turned by itself, angling toward a direction on the primordial continent, and it emitted a series of low, intent hums. Chapter 136, Pangu's Secrets, Taiyi's Madness. Long Chen's brow twitched as the Four Seas Dragon Suppressing Bell above his head emitted a strange, resonant hum. It was a summons from the depths of its origin, as if something of the same origin in the great desolate land was answering it from afar. He picked up the precious bell and closed his eyes, letting his divine thought trace the call into the bell's core origin space. In an instant, his consciousness pierced through endless stretches of time and space into a primordial chaos. A giant, towering between heaven and earth, wielded an indescribably colossal axe and hacked with the force of worlds. Each swing destroyed a universe, each strike forged a new heaven and earth, Pangu creating the heavens. Even in that blurry imprint, the iron will to create and to define everything struck Long Chen to the core. So that's how it is. When Long Chen opened his eyes sometime later, everything in his mind had snapped into place. Zulong, noticing the change in his expression, couldn't hide his curiosity. "Your Highness, what did you discover?" Long Chen weighed the bell in his hand and smiled, amusement flickering in his eyes like someone watching a good show. An extraordinary secret. Seeing Zulong and Ao Dong leaning forward eager, he didn't keep them waiting. "Do you know how Pangu achieved Tao?" Zulong and Ao Dong exchanged uncertain glances. Zulong hesitated before answering. Legend says great god Pangu was born in chaos, controlled the law of power, and through that ultimately achieved Tao, opening the great desolate land. That's true, but only the surface. Long Chen nodded. Pangu created the heavens, his body transformed into all things, his primordial spirit became the three pure ones, but his supreme law of power didn't completely vanish. He tapped the bell lightly. Dong. A clear, melodious chime rang out, mingled with a vague, ancient roar. The Pangu axe was the embodiment of the law of power. It shattered, its blade became this bell, its back became the Pangu banner, and its handle became the Taiji diagram. These three heaven-opening treasures are more than mere artifacts. Each hides an imprint of Pangu's most fundamental Tao. Long Chen's voice was low, but it sent chills through Zulong and the other senior Dragon Clan members. The Taiji diagram is Pangu's Tao of balance, which stabilizes earth, water, fire, and wind. The Pangu banner is his Tao of creation, which is why it can cut through anything. And this bell, his eyes flashed. In this bell is Pangu's most central, most domineering Tao, suppression. When I refinished it using my own Tao to purge the impurities, I accidentally activated this dormant Pangu imprint, and that imprint sensed the existence of its brother. Brother? Aodong was stunned. You mean the Pangu banner and the Taiji diagram? No, Longchen shook his head, excitement brightening his face. Not those. It's Pangu's true legacy. After Pangu opened the heavens, his essence, his blood, transformed into the 12 ancestral witches, inheriting his physical body. But his great Tao of power was too overwhelming for any single living being to inherit fully. In the end, it shattered into 12 fragments and scattered across the great desolate land. The suppression imprint in this bell is one of those fragments. What it sensed just now was another fragment of Pangu's great Tao. Zulong and Aodong felt those words hit like thunder. Fragments of Pangu's great Tao. What did that mean? It meant a path that could bypass Hongjun, bypass the heavenly Tao itself, a supreme avenue straight toward the origin of the great Tao. If Hongjun's Tao of severing the three corpses was about finding the strongest place in the house of the heavenly Tao, then Pangu's great Tao of power was about tearing down that house and building your own. Your Highness, where is that fragment? Zulong's voice trembled with excitement. No rush. Long Chen waved a hand and smiled. Its location has been locked. It can't escape, but now is not the time to retrieve it. He set the Four Seas dragon-suppressing bell back above his head and felt the power fit his primordial spirit like a key in a lock, letting his words become law. He was in an excellent mood. This was beyond expectation. Not only had he gained a reborn supreme treasure, he'd unwittingly unearthed Pangu's contingency plan. Hongjun thought he'd calculated everything, but he never anticipated that Pangu had left such an ace up his sleeve. The stage of the great desolate land held other planted secrets besides Hongjun's designs. 33rd Heaven, Demon Emperor Palace. Ugh! A mouthful of black blood spouted from Emperor Taiyi of the East, sizzling a hole through the solar gold bed beneath him. He flung his eyes open. Where flame should have burned in them, there was only ash-gray hollowness. My bell. Where is my bell? He scrambled from the bed like a madman, stumbling through his chambers in a frantic search. Where's the bell? Who took my bell? Your Majesty, you're awake. Ji Meng, the demon god on guard at the door, rushed in at the commotion and froze at the sight of the emperor, disheveled and unhinged. Your health is paramount. Get out. Emperor Taiyi shoved him away, eyes bloodshot with rage. My bell, the Chaos Bell, it's gone. Did that scoundrel Longchen steal it? Bring it back. It's our lifeblood. The bedchamber door burst open. Dijun entered, gaunt and hollow-faced. He looked at his deranged younger brother, and his heart clenched. Taiyi, Imperial brother. Emperor Taiyi grabbed at him like a drowning man clutching a life rope. Imperial brother, where is our bell? Where is the Chaos Bell? Was it stolen by Long Chen? Quickly, get it back. That's our lifeblood. Dijun met his brother's desperate eyes. He opened his mouth, but no words came. How could he get it back? Even the Tao ancestor had retreated. What force could take on that madman? Seeing Dijun's silence and pained expression, the frantic hope drained from Emperor Taiyi's face and was replaced by hollow, bone-deep despair. It's gone, he whispered. Completely. Gone. He felt it, the last lingering bond between him and the Chaos Bell, the coexistence that had sustained him, had been severed by a higher, more overpowering will. The bell no longer belonged to him. Pht! Another mouthful of blood. Emperor Taiyi lurched backward and collapsed. His Tao heart was shattered. What difference remained between an emperor who had lost his coexisting supreme treasure and a cripple? None. Taiyi! Dijun let out a mournful howl and rushed to support him. But when he saw the ash-gray in Taiyi's eyes and the rapid fade of his life force, his own heart plummeted into an abyss. His brother was finished. A ferocious, unprecedented hatred and virulence erupted from Dijun's depths, devouring any remaining reason. Long Chen, he spat through clenched teeth. Hongjun. He lifted his head and glared toward the East Sea, then to Xianxia Palace, predatory fire in his eyes. You all must die. I, Dijun, swear to the heavenly Tao, if I do not grind you to dust in this life, then may I be eternally damned, never to be reborn. His hatred no longer targeted only Long Chen. From this moment on, the lofty Dao ancestor who had treated him as a mere chess piece was his mortal enemy as well. The demon god, Bai Zhe, stood in the great hall of Lingxiao Palace, deliberately slowing his breath until every noise seemed stilled. He stared at the figure on the imperial throne, eyes bloodshot, aura shredded, and after a long struggle, forced the words out. "Your Majesty, please accept my condolences." The hall was so silent it felt like a held breath. The news that the Eastern Emperor Taiyi's Dao heart had been shattered, that he had been crippled, landed on every demon god's chest like an invisible crushing weight. The heavenly court's aura of invincibility had been pierced. Dijun raised his head. His irises were no longer gold, but absolute black, and that darkness seemed to cut into Baize's primordial spirit. "Taiyi is not dead. Why would I accept condolences?" His voice was soft, almost calm. The calm hit a volcano. "Not only do I want Taiyi to live, I want him stronger than before." His eyes flashed with a terrible, focused hunger. "I want Long Chen. I want the Dragon Clan to pay their blood debt." A murmur rippled through the court. Long Chen, whose name alone had once forced Hongjun to retreat, had become a measuring stick for Dijun's wounded pride. "Going head-to-head is the act of a fool," Dijun said, but there was a manic excitement under his words. "We will not fight the Dragon Clan. We will fight the Witch Clan." "What?" Demon Master Kunpeng stepped forward, frowning. "Your Majesty, with the Eastern Emperor grievously injured, the Heavenly Court has already lost much luck. To provoke war with the Witch Clan now would be reckless." "Reckless?" Dijun snorted, mocking. He crossed to the hall's center and opened the Hetu Luoshu, the river diagram, and Luo River book, into a miniature star map of the Great Desolation that hovered over his palm. "Fighting the Witch Clan is the bait. It's for the myriad races of the Great Desolation, and for a certain presence in Hua Palace. I need a victory to hide what I truly seek." His eyes moved between lunacy and cold calculation in a way that made everyone shiver. "What I truly want is a weapon that can solve everything." Baize felt something like ice surge through him. Dijun's lips curved into something fierce, and he spoke 3 words, slow and deliberate. "Witch slaying sword." The phrase hit the hall like thunder. Those 3 words carried boundless sin. To forge such a sword, the text said, required the souls of billions and the kind of resentment and hatred that burned like a furnace, with the result being a blade that would stand against the heavenly Tao itself. "Your Majesty, absolutely not." Kunpeng's face went white. That blade would pervert the natural order. It would invite heavenly retribution. "Heavenly retribution?" Dijun laughed, a raw sound laced with blood and tears. "The heavenly Tao is unjust. It treats our Yao race as pawns. What good is such a heaven? Today, I will defy heaven." His gaze pierced through the 33rd heaven toward Hua Palace, to the Tao field amid the chaos. "And I will use the purest, freshest souls in this world." Junior Sister Nua is about to create the human race. They will be saint-made souls, innocent, untainted, perfect fuel. The whisper of it was like a devil's breath. To use a nascent race that a saint was about to birth as material for a weapon, this was not mere cruelty. It was annihilation. "Your Majesty, think of the consequences." Baize fell to his knees. "Empress Nua is on the verge of sanctity. If you provoke her, our Yao race will be ruined." "Saint?" Dijun's face showed a naked, green-eyed hunger. "She is not one yet. As long as I claim enough of the human race's souls before she ascends and forge the sword, what can she do?" He glanced at the silent demon gods. "Do not forget, her elder brother Fuxi still serves in my court." Those words cut like a blade. The demon gods fell into a stunned, helpless silence. Dijun was beyond reason. No sane force could stop a ruler ready to drag an entire civilization into slaughter. In Hua Palace, Nua was in seclusion when a jade cup cracked beside her with a sharp kacha. A tremor deep in her bloodline woke her. She performed a divination only to find the heavenly signs shredded, fouled by a poisonous, chaotic influence. "Elder brother, come quickly." Before the palace doors finished opening, Fuxi burst in. He looked pale. A smear of golden blood stained the corner of his mouth. "Junior sister, something has happened." "Are you wounded?" Nua's worry flared. Fuxi unrolled his head of Luoshu, but the diagrams were stained red, filled with twisted images that seemed to claw and wail. "I had a sudden omen, and I divined the future, but the heavenly secret struck back." His voice was hoarse. I only saw fragments. Blood, filling Mount Bujo. A nascent race crying as their souls are pulled and forged into a supreme vicious sword. I saw, you and I, brother and sister, split apart, yin from yang. Nua leapt to her feet, the dignity of a nascent saint flaring outward and making the palace tremble. Her future children, races she had not yet formed, reduced to fuel? Dijun. Understanding washed over her in a cold tide. Rage followed so fast it left her breathless. How dare he? Why wouldn't he dare? Fuxi forced a bitter smile. Taiyi is crippled. The heavenly court looks weak. He has no other way out. A ruler who fears obliteration becomes a beast that devours everything he can reach. And you're his bargaining chip. Nua swayed. Her face turned ashen. Of all the options, being used as leverage against Fuxi was the most vicious. She had felt unease for some time, but now she knew the cause. On one side, the race she had yet to create. On the other, the elder brother she had stood beside for eons. Dijun's choice was poison, ruthless and precise. How could she respond? Call on Hongjin? He yearned for the Great Tribulation and would not intervene. Strike Dijun herself? Nua had not yet become a saint, and Fuxi was already in his hands. Everywhere she looked was a dead end. Despair threatened to take hold. Then a memory flashed, Long Chen's words when he left. Fuxi will die. I can save him. Long Chen had seen this thread before. That wasn't a plea. It was proof that sometimes to stop a madman, you must find a madder will to oppose him. The uncertainty in Nua's chest smoothed into cold resolve. She looked at Fuxi, voice steady and solemn. Elder brother, do you trust me? Fuxi met her eyes and with a weight of aeons in his nod, answered, I trust you. Good. Nua took a breath that steadied her whole body. Stay in the palace. Do not leave. Wait for me. Her words were barely finished before she moved. Space seemed to tear as she accelerated, leaving the palace in a streak of light. Direction fixed, purpose unshakable. She was heading to the East Sea, Crystal Palace. Long Chen lounged against the throne, fingertips idly tapping the armrest. A newly brewed cup of 10,000-year nectar swayed with his motion, reflecting the faint boredom on his face. Below him, Prime Minister Turtle rattled on about the banquet's success, beard twitching as he spoke with exaggerated enthusiasm. Your Highness, after this bestowal, the Dragon Clan's morale has soared. Everyone's united like never before. This truly is a historic occasion in our clan's long history. Long Chen made a non-committal hum and took a sip, his gaze seeming to pierce the crystal dome up toward the 33rd heaven. If Dijun were the sort to speak honest words behind closed doors, the sun would rise in the west. No doubt he was scheming somewhere, but it didn't much concern Long Chen. A commotion at the hall's entrance cut through the chatter. A Yaksha guard burst in, face pale with a mixture of fear and awe. Report. The guard stumbled over his words. Reporting to your highness. Outside the palace, a great power has requested an audience. She claims to be goddess Nua. Nua? The hall shut down as if a blade had been drawn. Even the high-ranking elders froze and exchanged sharp, bewildered looks. What could this future saint, a personal disciple of the Tao ancestor, be doing at the East Sea Crystal Palace, a place saturated with wild dragon qi? Long Chen barely blinked. Let her in. Moments later, Nua entered the coiling dragon hall in a flowing palace dress, flanked by two trembling yakshas. Her bearing was peerless. Every step carried a sacred, noble qi that made the wild dragon qi in the hall slacken as if in deference. Yet the moment her eyes met the man on the throne, the composed aura of a future saint wavered. The man on the throne emitted no pressure. He simply sat with casual indifference, as if the throne belonged not to the Dragon Clan, but to the very heavenly Tao of the Great Desolation. His mere presence dulled the surrounding laws. Greetings, fellow Taoist Long Chen. Nua bowed, a salute between peers. Long Chen waved his hand to dismiss Candle Dragon and the other attendants. The hall emptied until only the two of them remained. He spoke at last, his voice flat. Speak, Goddess Nua. You walked me to the door last time, she said after a pause, choosing her words carefully, and now you come to my doorstep. Why? Nua held back nothing. Any hedging before this man would be foolish. Fellow Taoist, I came for my brother Fuxi and for my future people. Oh, Long Chen toyed with his cup. So the warning I gave you last time registered? Nua inhaled deeply. Solemnity settled in her eyes. Dijun has gone mad. He plans to temper the witch-slaying sword with billions of souls. The human race I intend to create, he intends to use them as the fuel. He's even threatened my brother to force my compliance. Long Chen merely chuckled. And? Nuwa met his gaze with desperate sincerity. I believe you have the power to reach heaven and earth. You can save my brother. She stepped forward and offered what was for her the highest pledge. I've come to fulfill my promise. If you act, when I become a saint, my human race will form an eternal alliance with your dragon clan, our fortunes intertwined forever. Such a promise, the alliance of a future saint, would tempt any great power. Long Chen listened, drained the wine in his cup, and tossed the crystal goblet aside. Instead of shattering, the cup turned to perfect dust that drifted away. Not enough. He said it plainly. Nua's face fell. She had thought she'd offered everything. Fellow Taoist, this is all I can offer. Isn't the alliance of a future saint sufficient? Future? Long Chen rose from the throne at last and descended the steps. Each step seemed to land on her racing heart. He stopped before her and looked down with something like pity. Goddess Nua, you still don't understand. Your future means nothing to me. He stepped closer. Your so-called alliance is a scrap of paper Hongjun could tear up at any moment. He raised a finger, and without touching her, tapped the center of her forehead. A subtle ripple washed through her. Nua trembled and went pale. In that instant, every veil, every disguise, every pride and sanctity she wore as a future saint felt pierced and crushed by that single touch. You, she whispered, do you think you're bargaining with me? Long Chen's voice was soft, but like a drill into the mind. No, you are begging. You beg me to drag your brother and your unborn people out of the script Hongjun wrote for them. You beg me to save yourself. When the Great Tribulation comes and Dijun slaughters your human race, when Fuxi dies for them, what can you do? Long Chen's words were cutting, edged with mockery. You will only watch. You are a dog raised by the heavenly Tao. If your master doesn't tell you to bite, you must look to his face even to bark. Nua snapped, voice shaking. No, I won't. Do you think you can resist with that feeble cultivation? He scoffed coldly. Or with the title Hongjun bestowed upon you? Those words dismantled the last barrier inside her. She staggered back as despair overtook her. She had nothing to stand on. Long Chen watched her unravel for a moment, then turned, walked back to his throne, and sat, pouring another cup of wine. Now, he said, lifting his cup as if toasting. After all that, do you still think your sincerity is enough? Nua stood silent for a long time. When she finally looked up, the brilliance that once shone like the sun and moon in her eyes had faded to a single, pleading light. Then, what exactly do you want, fellow Taoist? Long Chen smiled. This was the answer he'd been waiting for. He raised his cup and tilted it toward her in a mock celebratory clink. Very simple. I want your human race, from the moment of their birth, to flow with the blood of my dragon clan, to worship the totem of my dragon clan, to have, deep within their souls for all eternity, the brand of my dragon clan etched. Chapter 139, The Holy Land of the Human Race, East China Sea Dragon Island. Imprint them with your dragon clan's mark. Nua looked up. Her eyes, which once reflected sun, moon, mountains, and rivers, were now filled only with bewilderment. What did he mean? Long Chen watched her, a mischievous curve on his lips, and slowly laid out a plan that made her Tao heart tremble. 9 heavens breathing earth. I can give it to you, he said. 3 lights divine water. I can give that too. But the place where you create the human race cannot be anywhere else. It must be in my East Sea. What? Nua cried. The idea was more absurd than asking her to hand over the human race's luck. Create the human race in the East Sea? Unheard of. The human race was the race she had comprehended from the heavenly Tao, destined to be born and to become the future protagonists of heaven and earth. Their birthplace should rightfully be in the center of the great desolate continent, where luck was most prosperous and where they would inherit the orthodox lineage of heaven and earth. How could she choose a place in the 4 seas where evil qi and water elemental qi mingled? Fellow Taoist, this goes against the heavenly Tao. Her voice trembled. Heavenly Tao? Long Chen scoffed, disdain curling his tone. Hear with me. What I say is the heavenly Tao. He stepped forward. Invisible pressure forced Nua to take a step back. You don't need to worry about luck and foundation. I will find an immortal island in the East Sea, born from a fragment of chaos whose spiritual chi rivals that of Kunlun Mountain. I will take the immeasurable karma my dragon clan earned, suppressing the Blackwater Death Abyss, and transform it into the waters of a golden karma pond to help you shape the earth and create humans. Longchen's voice carried a demonic, seductive conviction. My dragon clan, born of Pongu's water element, carries the karma of creation. Humans nurtured by the golden light of that karma will be born with foundations and luck hundreds of times stronger than if they came into being on mortal soil. Nua's heart pounded. The Dragon Clan's Karma Golden Pond. She'd heard of it, the supreme fortune that had purified the Great Desolate's prime forbidden zone and won the Heavenly Tao's favor. If she could use those waters to create humans, the newborn human race's aptitude might truly rival any innate heavenly god. This was tempting. This is not enough. Long Chen seemed to read her wavering and laid out another card she couldn't refuse. After they are born, the human race will be fragile, a blank slate. What is the Great Desolate? Wolves, tigers, leopards, demons, ghosts. What beast or fiend wouldn't see them as food? There's even a mad raven in the sky with blood-red eyes, looking for somewhere to vent. If they are born in my East Sea, they will be under the protection of my dragon clan. As long as my dragon clan exists, who would dare harm a single hair on their heads? I will designate that immortal island as the human race Holy Land, personally guarded by my dragon clan's elites. Let them grow, learn to cultivate, learn to fight, and when they're ready, they can return to the continent to contend for the role of protagonist in heaven and earth. Each of Long Chen's words struck Nua like a hammer. Perfect. This plan almost solved every worry. It could give the newborn human race a powerful foundation and an absolutely safe sanctuary to get through their weakest infancy. Still, fellow Taoist, why go to such lengths? What do you want in return? Nua asked. There was no free lunch. His generosity had to have a purpose beyond mere alliance. Long Chen smiled. He turned his back to her, his gaze seeming to pierce through the Crystal Palace dome toward Xianxia Palace above. What I seek is to burn this script of ordained destiny. His voice went cold. Nua, do you really believe you comprehended the Tao and became a saint by your own power? No. You, I, the three pure ones, Di Jun, the 12 ancestral witches, everyone in this great desolate, we are all pieces on Hongjun's chessboard. He allowed you to become a saint, so you became a saint. He allowed the human race to be the protagonist, so the human race became the protagonist. He allowed the witch and demon clans to slaughter each other, so they had to shed rivers of blood. But I, Long Chen, do not believe in fate, and I hate scripts written by others. An indescribable supreme will, defiant and transcendent above both imperial Tao and heavenly Tao, erupted from Long Chen. The coiling dragon hall trembled and wailed under that will. Nua was forced back again and again, her primordial spirit aching, nearly prostrating her. Watching Long Chen's back, she finally understood. He didn't want to be a chess player contending with Hongjun. He wanted to smash the chessboard, kill the chess player, and then set new rules himself. I agree, she burst out. After the shock, a never-before-seen flame ignited in Nua's eyes. A flame of resistance against the injustice of fate, suppressed through countless eons. Rather than be a puppet saint at the mercy of others, watching her brothers and clanmen march toward destruction, it was better, she thought, to follow this madman and gamble on a future of self-determined destiny. Very good. Long Chen turned, a satisfied smile on his face. He waved his sleeve, and the 9 heavens breathing earth, radiant with endless vitality, appeared. A jade-clear vessel containing the 3 lights divine water materialized beside it. The items are here. Go prepare. East of the East Sea, 36,000 li from here, there is an Yingzhou immortal island, born from a fragment of chaos, with extraordinary spiritual qi and law. I've ordered it cleansed. That will be the holy land of the human race. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Nua bowed deeply and accepted the divine items. Her bow was for a distant but suddenly possible future. Make a show of it. Let the entire Great Desolate know that you, Nua, are going to do something earth-shattering in my East Sea, Long Chen said, waving her away. Nua nodded and transformed into a streak of light, vanishing toward the horizon. As she disappeared, Longchen's smile turned even more playful. Dijun, Hongjun, he murmured. Your script, starting today, needs a new protagonist. He raised his voice through the Crystal Palace. Issue a command. Order Zulong and Aodong to personally lead 100,000 dragon guards to Yingzhou Immortal Island. Set up the 10,000 Dragons World Purification Formation. Anyone who dares to approach within 10,000 li of the Immortal Island, kill without mercy. Yingzhou Immortal Island. The island was indeed a rare blessed land, saturated with spiritual essence and immortal qi. Nuwa descended into the Central Valley and sat in meditation for 3 days, bringing her essence, qi, and spirit to perfect harmony. The Tao of creation was no trivial matter. When she stood, she raised a jade hand. The 9 heavens breathing earth floated before her, while the 3 lights divine water dripped into it. The inert earth instantly came alive, writhing and changing, exuding a rich aura of life. Nuwa extended a slender finger and, guided by the great Tao of creation, began to mold the shape of the first living being. She formed a clay figure with a naturally shaped Tao body, not Pangu, but harmonious and refined. Just then, a streak of purple gold light silently cut through the void and merged into the breathing earth Nuwa was shaping. She startled and turned. Long Chen stood behind her. When he had arrived, she did not know. Fellow Taoist, she began, startled. Don't be distracted. Long Chen's voice was calm. You have created its form, but you haven't sculpted its spirit. Humans forged this way are perfect shells, docile lambs, not true living beings. Missing, what? Nuwa asked. A backbone, Long Chen said simply. How can a race without a backbone contend with heaven? How can it be the protagonist of this world? I will give them an unyielding dragon bone. The moment his words fell, the defiant will that radiated from him became an invisible imprint. Along with a merged drop of purple golden dragon blood, it sank deep into the origin of the breathing earth, engraving itself into the nascent life. Chapter 140, The Birth of the Human Race, the Dragon Totem. The instant Long Chen's single drop of origin dragon blood, carrying a supreme stubborn will, merged with the breathing earth, the heavens reacted. Rumble. Over all of Yingzhou Immortal Island, winds and clouds began to swirl. Above the 9 heavens, Taoic thunder tore through empty air, laced with anger, and beneath that, a thin thread of fear. Boundless Xuanhuang karma qi surged from beyond the 33 heavens, converging above the island to form a towering, sky-darkening vortex of auspicious karma cloud. Its majesty exceeded the spectacle when Long Chen had purified the black water death abyss by 100-fold. Every powerful figure who projected their divine thought to witness the scene across the great desolation was stunned into silence. 33rd Heaven, Lingxiao Palace. Daijun shot up from his imperial throne, eyes fixed on the dense, unresolvable Xuanhuang cloud sea reflected in his water mirror, his face a mask of blood-red jealousy and seething refusal. Nuwa, he roared. How dare she? How dare she defy my will and go into Long Chen's domain to create humans and become a saint? Dijun trembled with fury. All his plans, every poisonous scheme laid for Taiyi's revenge, looked like a mockery the moment Nuwa ascended to sainthood. Kunlun Mountain, Sangqing Hall. Junior sister Nuwa has taken a step ahead. Yuanqi Tianzun looked east toward the sea, his voice bitter and hard to read. As a scion of Pangu's line, being outpaced by a mere woman pricked his pride sorely. Taiqing Laozi remained outwardly calm, but for the first time faint ripples of worry showed in his ancient, immovable eyes. Humph, what if she becomes a saint? The Tongqian cult master muttered, pressing a hand to the Qingping sword as his battle intent surged. Once I found the G-sect, that saint position will be mine. On western Mount Sumeru, Jieyin and Junti watched the dazzling gold light from the east. Pain and frustration carved their faces. Senior brother, she beat us to it again. Junti stamped his foot in vexation. On Yingzhou Immortal Island, Nuwa was lost in her own work, oblivious to the uproar elsewhere. She moved within the profound law of creation, attuned entirely to the Tao in her heart, molding life with obsessive devotion. The integration of Long Chen's drop smoothed and accelerated the process. The mud figures she shaped were no longer empty shells of form. Each seemed to be infused with an untamed, nascent soul. Soon the valley overflowed with tens of thousands of humans in countless forms, all pulsing with vitality. When the last figure landed, Nuwa lifted her head and looked upon her children, love filling her eyes. Her lips parted, and her voice transformed into the profound tone of the heavenly Tao, spreading across the great desolation. I, Nuwa, she declared, today on Yingzhou in the East Sea, sensing the shortage of living beings between heaven and earth, use the 9 heavens breathing earth as flesh and the 3 lights divine water as blood to fashion a clan and name it, the human. The human race, established. Boom. As her words fell, the karma auspicious cloud vortex roared down. Endless golden karma light poured into Nuwa like a river of heaven. Her aura soared. Late-stage quasi-saint. Perfection quasi-saint. Crack! A deep cracking rang in her primordial spirit. The 3 corpses that hovered above her head fused into one and merged completely with her main body. A supreme saintly might, towering above the quasi-saints and the heavens themselves, erupted from her, sweeping across the great desolation. In that instant, all things bowed and all beings prostrated. Nuwa, heavenly Tao saint, had achieved Tao. But the anomaly did not end there. The karma auspicious cloud, after elevating Nuwa to sainthood, still retained 40% of its power. 30% transformed into a gentle shower of golden light that fell upon the tens of thousands of newly birthed humans below. Bathed in it, their bodies strengthened, and their intelligence awakened. The remaining 10% split into 2 streams. One current fused into Yingzhou Immortal Island, forming a protective ward around the human race. The other stream shot directly toward Longchen, who stood to one side with his hands clasped behind his back, idly watching the show. Longchen blinked in mild surprise. He had only added a trace of seasoning. He hadn't expected to receive karma himself. Though the karma was trivial to him, there was no point in refusing free gains. Just as he reached out to accept it, an unexpected change occurred. The newly born tens of thousands of humans, who ought to have been ignorant and adoring of their creator, were not behaving as Nuwa expected. Bathed in the golden karma light, an ancient instinct deep in their bloodlines seemed to awaken. In perfect unison, they turned and ignored Nuwa, who stood above them newly crowned, and instead fell prostrate before Longchen. They dropped to the ground on all 5 limbs, performing 3 kowtows and 9 bows with absolute, synchronized precision. Their movements left no room for hesitation. Their worship was primitive, pure, and unwavering. Father, God, a vague syllable, full of filial reverence, slipped from their throats. At the precise moment they kowtowed, a faint but supremely majestic totem mark appeared on each forehead. A purple-gold divine dragon coiled among the 9 heavens. Boom! That scene was imprinted, via the divine ability water mirrors, into the primordial spirits of every living being across the great desolation. Shock froze everyone's minds. What was happening? Nuwa had created mankind, yet they did not venerate the Holy Mother. They worshipped Longchen. They called him Father God, and a dragon clan totem had sprouted on their brows. Whose children were these, after all? Above Lingxiao Palace, Dijun watched his vision blur and a rebellious heat rise to his throat. He understood now. All at once, he saw Longchen's aim from the start had never been to protect the human race. He had been a cuckoo in the nest, a brazen thief. With methods no one had foreseen, he had stolen Nuwa's creation essence right in front of the entire Great Desolation, turning the future pillars of heaven and earth into followers of the Dragon Clan. Pfft! Dijun could not hold back a mouthful of purple-gold imperial blood. Longchen, you are monstrous, vicious. Kunlun Mountain, Xianxia Tianzun's face was darker than a bottomless pot. How shameless, how despicable. Such conduct, simply unheard of. He trembled with rage. Xianxia Tianzun had always prided himself on cunning plans, but against Longchen's audacious scheme of stealing the sky and changing the sun, even his own machinations felt childish. On Mount Buzhou, Pangu Hall, Zhurong stared, dumbfounded, before finally muttering, "Damn, so you can do it like that?" Even the usually unshakable Dijiang could only twitch in disbelief. Longchen's domineering audacity and cunning were monstrous. The most astonished person of all was undoubtedly Nuwa herself. Newly entered into Tao, she stared blankly at the humans kneeling before Longchen and at the clear divine dragon totems on their foreheads. The round perfection of her saintly Tao heart cracked for the first time. "I am the Holy Mother," she thought, incredulous. "You're worshipping the wrong being. And where did that dragon on your foreheads come from?" I didn't add that when I shaped you. Her saint-seeing eyes, able to pierce time and space, fixed on Long Chen. He met her gaze and spread his hands with a playful curve to his mouth. Don't look at me, he said lightly. Perhaps it's the will of heaven. Will of heaven, my foot. Nua's saintly body trembled with fury. If she still could not see that Long Chen had interfered, then her sainthood would have been hollow. It must have been that drop of purple gold dragon blood. That bastard! Not only did he steal her creation's karma, but he'd also brazenly snatched her title of Holy Mother.